Good afternoon. At this time, we're going to call to order a public hearing of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners on Monday, July the 12th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. at Franklin County Justice Center in Carnesville, Georgia. We just note for the record that we have a quorum consisting of all 5 commissioners present. I want to welcome everyone and thank you for coming and joining us this afternoon. At this time, we need to approve the agenda for this afternoon's public hearing. So, commissioners, at this time, is there a motion to approve the public hearing agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Wester's made a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Franklin has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as presented, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. The motion will carry 4-0 and the agenda is approved as presented. The purpose of this hearing is to receive public comments for or against proposed zoning applications that will be considered for action by the board later at tonight's regular board meeting that immediately follows this hearing. No action will be taken at this hearing, and all parties are welcome to remain after the public hearing for the regular meeting itself. We have 4 items on the agenda for this hearing. After we introduce each item, we're going to ask the planning director to come forward and present a description of each application as well as his recommendation and the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We'll ask the applicant, if present, to come forward and speak first on behalf of their request. After the applicant has spoken, we'll call first for those who wish to speak in favor of an application, and then we'll call for those who wish to speak against the application. At the end of the public comments for each application, the applicant will have an opportunity to come forward and make a summary statement and give rebuttal to any comments that have been made, and commissioners can also question the applicant at this time. Members of the public who wish to comment either for or against an application will be recognized individually, and we ask that when you come up to the podium, you give your name and address to the clerk. Each person will have up to 5 minutes to speak. The clerk has a timer you'll be able to look at so that you always know how much time you have remaining. Questions may not be asked, and speakers cannot yield unused time to another person. Members of the public are required to follow the same rules of decorum as each commissioner. This includes being civil, using respectful discourse, and avoiding personal attacks. All comments should be directed to the chair, and members of the audience may not interrupt or comment while someone else is speaking. Please help us to facilitate a fair and impartial hearing by being courteous to others. We ask each person to take care to observe the 5-minute time limit. This limit will be strictly enforced, and that's just so that everyone has an opportunity to have their say. Members of the public are not permitted to interrupt while others are speaking, and we respectfully ask that you refrain from side conversations. The first item for discussion is an application for a conditional use permit. Dustin Hunn of 5747 Gumlog Road, Martin, Georgia, has filed an application for a conditional use permit to build 2 poultry houses on a tract of land totaling approximately 77.38 acres located at 5747 Gumlog Road and further identified as tax parcel 061-001B. At this time, we're going to have Mr. DeLozier, our planning director, to come forward.
Good evening, gentlemen. Yeah, so as you stated, Mr. Hunn has applied for to add. He'll be adding 2 more hen houses to an existing 2-house poultry farm located at 5747 Gumlog Road, further identified as tax parcel 061-0011B.
Okay. What was when the planning heard that? Did they?
Oh, yeah. The planning commission recommended approving this.
Any conditions?
No conditions. His site plan indicates all setbacks can be made. He's set far enough off the road to there doesn't appear to be any impact to any neighboring or adjoining properties.
Okay, thank you. All right, this time we're going to ask the applicant, Mr. Hunn, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, to come forward. Is he here?
Yes.
Come up, please. If you just take this time if you want to talk about your application, tell the commissioners what you intend to do and anything else you think is pertinent.
Hello, my name is Dustin Hunn. So right now I have to breed a house, chicken breeder house with CWT, but I would like to request the permit to build 2 more chicken breeder house.
And you said you were growing with CWT?
Yes, CWT, sir.
Okay. When would you expect to start construction? Or can you give us a timeline?
As soon as I can.
Is there anything else you'd like for the board to know? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. This time we're going to call for anyone who wants to speak in favor of Mr. Hunn's application. So if you'll please raise your hand. Is there anyone who'd like to come forward and speak on his behalf? Anyone to speak for it? Okay. At this time, we'll call for anyone who would wish to speak against this application. If you'll raise your hand. Anyone wishing to speak? Okay. At this time, normally we would have the applicant come back up. Commissioners, do you have questions for Mr. Hunn? Okay. Mr. Hunn, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll go on to the next one. The second or the next item for discussion is an application for a conditional use permit. Tina Brock of 3406 New Kingsbridge Road, Nicholson, Georgia, has filed an application for a conditional use permit to build and operate a women's shelter refuge center on an approximately 10-acre tract of land located at 638 Reno Road and further identified as tax parcel 040-095G. So Mr. Delosier, if you'll come up.
Yeah, so Ms. Brock has applied for a conditional use permit to operate it's a women's shelter refuge center. She's going to give you a little more information on the exact vision she has for the property. She's going to be cutting out 10 acres of land from her tract of land, 40-something acres plus or minus that she has over there. The Planning Commission's recommendation was to approve this conditional use permit, and they had no conditions attached to that approval.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is Ms. Brock present? You want to come up?
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good
Thank you
evening.
all for having me. My name is Tina Brock. I currently live at 3406 New Kingsbridge Road, Nicholson, Georgia. I've been executive director and founder with a friend of mine, Franklin Life, here in Carnesville, almost 20 years. And I've always called it my baby that God's placed me over to raise. And last year it turned 18 years old. So God put another ministry on my heart. And I always, over the years in my line of pregnancy center work, I worked at Hope Resource in Jefferson. I helped Madison County Pregnancy Center stay open for a while, and I worked with Toccoa Life to open Franklin Life. And over the years, we would occasionally get a call from a young lady pregnant with no place to go. And we would have to call places in Atlanta or places in other states, and a lot of them want to stay local. And so we didn't have that. And the opportunity when I inherited land came open for me to, when the Lord put this on my heart, a refuge. I was talking to a friend when we came out of Bar H, and I said, I'm going to have some land in Franklin County in St. Paul's, and I want to do something good with it. And she said, well, you know, they need a place for girls who come out of sex trafficking, pregnant, and things like that. And immediately the Lord dropped the word refuge in my spirit. So Righteous Rock Refuge will be a short-term, immediate shelter for a girl to lay her head where she doesn't have to worry about the outside world, and we will help her get the resources and the housing, long-term housing she needs. We want to have her to be safe, a place to stay, give her resources. Working with Franklin Life over the years, we know a lot of the resources. We don't intend to deal with the drug. We know there's other places that deal with drug addicts and things like this. I want this to be a place for a girl that's ready to change her life and move forward, and we want to help her do that. And so that's what the refuge would be.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Brock.
Thank you.
If you want to sit right there, because we may need you to come back up.
Okay.
At this time, we're going to call for anyone who'd like to speak in favor of Ms. Brock's application. If you'll just raise your hand, if you'll come up. And just as a reminder, if you'll give the clerk your name and address before you start.
My name is Terry Lloyd Morehouse. I live at 1705 at Farland Bridge Road, Carnesville, Georgia. Tina's done a really great job of putting together a board for Righteous Right Refuge. I used to be and have worked with domestic violence for 20 years. Since 1994, I was a shelter coordinator, worked at Circle of Hope in Cornelia, Heart Haven, and Hoboken. There is just such a need for women that are not necessarily in domestic violence situations or are, that have not, it's not progressed to that point where you're doing TPOs and stuff. And I just really think this would be awesome for this county and the surrounding counties to help out with the shelters that are open that can only take specified recent residents. And I plan to be the house resident and shelter coordinator.
Okay, thank you.
And help right residents.
Okay. Thank you. Who else would like to you can come on up?
My name is Judy Woodyard, and I live at 20 Meadowbrook Lane, Royston, Georgia. I've worked with Tina for about 10 years over at Franklin Life Pregnancy Resource Center. And as a little bit of background on myself, I was an adult probation officer for almost 30 years and have worked with a number of different shelters. And Tina has bounced ideas off of me as to what would be required of her and what she can offer and what she shouldn't offer, the limitations and the restrictions and the requirements that she will have for that. She's thought this program out thoroughly. She's been thinking about it for years. And like Tina said, we've gotten calls at Franklin Life where people have needed a place to stay. And she has recognized the need in Franklin County, and she wants to fill that void. Her heart is in this fully. She's consulted with God, which is our ultimate authority. And so I feel like it's well thought out, and I urge you to approve her application.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Woody. Anyone else like to speak?
My name is Amanda Moore. I currently live at 76 Wesley Chapel Road in Danielsville, Georgia. I go to church here in Franklin County. I was raised here in Franklin County. I've worked in Franklin County, not right now, but I have worked in Franklin County. But I helped Tina start Franklin Life, and in the work in Franklin Life, and I still help her some, not like I want to, but I'm still there some. And in that time, we have seen the need for girls who need a place to go, who doesn't have a place for whatever the reason. And I plan on helping her with this and working with this with her. And I just think it's a big need for Franklin County. And like she said, you have to spend, if a girl comes, your resources for girls are in Atlanta or out of state, and they can't stay local where they know their surroundings and are comfortable. And this would be a place for her to go and be where she feels safe and not in a place where she doesn't know anything or anybody and still, has to be away from home and all that stuff. And I think it's a really big need in Franklin County. I would urge you to approve this.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moore. Anyone else like to speak in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Mary Redden, and I live at 2648 Harrison Ridge Road. I've known Tina for about 20 years. She is very courageous and also quite a far-sighted person to look into the future for the needs of the community, women, children, families. I feel that her heart is in this. She is very faithful in her beliefs. I know she will be doing a very good job. I'm a registered nurse. I feel that Tina has the emotional, physical, spiritual health of the women that she will be serving on her very top of her priority list. And I know that this will be an asset to this community and to everyone that she serves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ridden. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor? You'll raise your hand. Anyone else? Okay. This time we'll call for anyone who would like to speak against the application. Is there anyone who would like to speak against? Anyone? None? Okay. If you'll come up, Ms. Brock, again, this is your chance. There was nobody that spoke against it, but if you want to add anything else, and if the commissioners have questions, we'll do that at this time. So is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
I've been waiting for you guys. I just gotta tell you, I've been waiting on this to get the green light to go. My church is behind us. My pastor said if we can go to Honduras and build, we can go to Santa Cross and build. So, and I've talked to Kelly Reno about possibly contracting some local stuff. Tim White do the plans if y'all see it. And there's land, there's 10 acres. I've already talked to one guy about the perk test. There's nothing there right now but rolling hills. So as soon as grading starts, all that can happen. But my wait is the green light from you guys, and we'll be fundraising. We're doing a little bit of fundraising to pay these fees that I have to pay along the way. But I have wanted to do everything by the books and appropriately. And Scott's been very helpful on that. And I'm just, you guys.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have questions?
Is this kind of the proposal, or is this a different?
I think that's a different one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I was just curious, how, as far as the houses go, how many?
Right
maybe
now,
two?
it's going to be a building shaped like this, and the girls' rooms will be, there's enough for, I think it was 8 if we needed 8.
Okay.
And there's plenty of land to build another one, another building if we need to.
Like that, it's in the shape of a cross.
Yes. And the driveway will be long. I know people here are going to know where it's at, but we're not going to put the general location out to like the whole world, the public, because we have a business address, will be Carnesville Post Office, but we don't want the physical address to be out there to just anybody, because this is going to be a refuge. There's enough space to have a long driveway. I've talked to Bartlett and Cash, and he's been surveying for me, and again, there's plenty of room for additional, building if we need it.
Okay. Commissioners?
When you plan on starting, when it gets approved?
ASAP. Yeah, I'm backing up. I'm waiting on y'all, and I've got some funding already promised. As soon as we start building, I'll be looking at graders and grant writing. We're already working on some grants, and yes. And if anybody would like to know more about it, there is these back on the desk. If they would like to pick one up, just how far.
Do you have well water or county water? Or?
I believe we're going to have a septic tank and well. I believe I've got some underground springs on the property, so that's exciting to look at.
Okay.
And there is a creek kind of right along the edge here of the creek, so I know about good water over there.
Okay. Any others? Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Brock.
Thank y'all.
Mr. Delozier, did you have anything else to add for that one?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. The next item on the agenda is an application for a conditional use permit. Edwin Albino, 157 Kennedy Drive, Commerce, Georgia, has filed an application for a conditional use permit to develop a 3-unit day camp on approximately 5.09 acres of land located at 157 Kennedy Drive and further identified as tax parcel 013-015B. So this time, Mr. Delozier, if you'll come up.
Yes, so Mr. Albino has applied for a conditional use permit for what is described as a day camp. He's proposing to have three units on the property that people can use for what he has planned for the property. Which he's going to give you a little more information on that. The planning commission heard it, and their recommendation was to deny the application. So that's what I have on it right now.
Okay.
You can hear from Mr. Albino.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Delozier. This time we're going to ask Mr. Albino to come up. I apologize, I was mispronouncing your name.
That's fine. It is. All right.
If you want to talk to us about the board, about what you have planned.
Thank you, guys. My name is Edwin Albino, and I live in 2317 Buford, but the house is, we also own that property, 157 Kennedy Drive. From the beginning, I've only been in Georgia 2 years. I thought that I would be able to buy a little bit of property, a little bit of land. I've had this idea for so many years. Before I came to Georgia, I worked at the Judge Baker Children's Center in Boston for 36 years. I was always working with the kids at Baker. Before I left, I was assistant facilities managers. Everything safety-wise, health-wise, anything that had to do with building or making sure that whatever went through Judge Baker went through us. So I needed to make sure. So when I retired, I wanted to just buy land. I said, well, let me put a little camp together, have some kids come over privately. This is going to be a private camp, family only. This is not open to the public. There are not going to be no signs. The concerns were a lot of traffic, a lot of people all over the place, a lot of strangers, and I heard and I took all that in and I said, okay, well, what we're going to do is hopefully work with the community and see. I plan to repair the road, get that out of the way. I already started to fence in 5.9 acres to sort of keep everything personally in my little area. The camp itself is just going to be for families to come up and just spend a day with their little ones, walk around. There's going to be niches that the kids will be able to explore, and there's going to be a little bit of educational stuff in there so that we can sort of bring the little ones back into nature. I have, the rendering also has a garden, so we're going to try to get them to learn how to plant and all that. But at the end of the day, the 3 cabins, I wanted to sort of get involved with the community and sort of generate a little bit of funds so that I can try to support the churches, even some of the schools, or the lady that just came up with her shelter for the women there. I want to meet with her and see if we can help. But this is basically a small private family camp, minimum a couple of 2 families, no more than 6, a couple cars coming up the road. I also heard that it needed to be able to have a turnaround for the fire department or any emergency vehicle. So from the entrance to the little area, you can drive up and just circle around the front of the house and then head back out if that's an issue. But that's basically all it is. It's a private, small camp. Has nothing to do with the public. It's only for us. If the people from the community want to come out and bring their kids to spend the day, they're welcome to do that. I am in full control of all the safety measures. Not only am I going to wrap a fence around the 5 point, but the campground itself is also going to be surrounded with their own individual fence, so that we don't have no type of issues.
Yeah.
And stay will be minimum a couple of nights. But the state itself is to try to generate funds, because I do want to get involved with the community so that I can invest with the community. I want to do something to help. There's a lot of struggle out there, and this past year I've seen it personally. When I met with Scott, that was the first thing we brought up. I want to do something with the schools. I want to do something with the churches. I want to find people that I can sort of help out. That's basically what this is all about. It's minimal. It's funded personally by me. I'm not asking for, at the end of the day, for the upkeeps. And like I said, I do want to help with with whichever way we can.
Right.
And my son lives on the property, so he's going to oversee. If there is any issues, and we'll jump right on it and we'll correct it. But that's all it is. It's a very small, little private, family-oriented little campground.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Urbino.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, we're going to ask for anyone who wants to speak in favor of Mr. Albino's application to please come up. And remember, when you come up, give your name and address before you start.
How's everyone doing? My name is Danny Albino. I live at 157 Kennedy Drive, Commerce. I live on the property. I'm hoping to get this approved because, as he said, it is something he's wanted to do for a while. I am going to be the one that helps him with any, physical building. I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old son at my house, so we absolutely aim to keep this to something private. I'm not looking to have a party central. I'm not looking to babysit anybody else other than my own kids and any families that come up. Just as he said, I will be on grounds to help ensure safety measures, help ensure no one just starts walking all over. And the end game is to try to generate funds and kind of do something with the community, because he's big on that, and I'm there to help him every step of the way. But something small, and in 3 units, we can limit the people. We went over the recommendations. We have no issue with any of those recommendations. We can adhere to all of them. We can limit the vehicles. If we need, speed signs, we can do that. We can install a noise ordinance if that's permitted, and all of this can be written in any documentation needed to be signed prior to anybody visiting our property, and just any measure to help kind of calm any potential issues we're willing to follow. And it's kind of, the plan that we come in is kind of a clay, and you guys can mold it to the way that fits the county, and we will adhere to all county guidelines, laws, rules, and there's going to be no signs privately, and we'll know ahead of time, and everyone communicates with us. And if it's the limit 6 people, we would hate to turn away a family of 4, but if it works out to where one family of 4 is in one unit and the other 2 can't be, so to keep it so we don't pass the 6, then so be it, and we operate like that. So, but for those reasons, I hope to approve, and we can limit the traffic and any issues we're willing to work with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rovino. Anyone else who would like to speak in favor of Mr. Albino's application? Okay, at this time we'll call for those who wish to speak against the application. If you'll raise your hand, we'll have you come up one at a time. Anyone who wishes to speak against, come up. And just remember, when you start, give your name and address, please.
Willie Vanderford. I live at 400 Family Lane, Commerce, Georgia.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, number one is I have a lake down there where his land joins mine. It's a very deep lake, a very small lake, but it's a deep lake. And I'm concerned about these units he's going to put in, because they're going to be right there at my lake, and I'm afraid the kids getting grounded in it. And also, this is a very private place for me down there. I like to go down there and just relax and enjoy it. Well, he's already put one little unit down there, facing my lake, or my dock. So, I mean, this is just disturbing to me that he would have all these units down there, right there at my lake. I mean, this close. And I'm afraid that what he's planning on doing is going to disturb all that. My peace of mind, and really the kids that's going to be around there. They're going to go swimming, they are. And who's to say that they're going to keep them out?
Yeah.
But he's got that unit sitting there facing my dock. So, I mean, he said he's going to move it, but he has to get it. But okay. I'm opposed to it, really bad.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Vanderford. Okay. Who else would like to come on?
My name is Crystal Kennedy Baldwin, and I live at 185 Kennedy Drive, Commerce, Georgia. My brother and I were the original owners of the property. He sold the property to that gentleman. The only access to his property is by an easement that goes across a fish pond. I own the fish pond, my husband and I do, and that is not made for lots of traffic. Anybody that owns a fish pond knows what a dam looks like, and we were really concerned when the rains came and stuff that was a detriment to anybody traveling it. We had no idea years ago when my dad built this pond that it would be 10 or 15 cars back and forth over it all the time. And I think with him putting additional people back there, that's going to be additional cars. There's no way to avoid that. There's no other way to get into his property but over that dam. That's a dangerous situation. Also, additional people coming, it's not that, it's probably 300 feet from my house. And I don't know who those people are going to be coming back and forth over there, Who will those people be over there and also roam around the woods? My property backs up to all that. Someone could come through the woods over to my house. That scares me. There are children that live in these homes along this road. Those children should not be worried about people who are unfamiliar with the area coming there and getting ran over, because you can't keep your eyes on your kids all the time, and usually that road is only used by the people that live on that road, and we're all really cautious. And I just feel like that would be a detriment back there. I feel like that the property may be used for rental property eventually, the way it looks right now. I know there's a lot of growth in the surrounding counties of Jackson County. There's not a lot of places that those people can live right now. They're looking for somewhere to rent inexpensively. I would not want that to be on the back of Kennedy Drive. So
Okay.
I appreciate y'all listening to me.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak? Okay.
Hello, my name is Sheila Wright. It's 24555 Highway 59 in Commerce. And I live at the front of this road. And I just want to address it. If they want to bring family, we're good with that. But it's like Crystal was saying, we're concerned that he wants to, and by their admission, they eventually want it to make money. Well, how are you going to get it to make money if it's just a little family campground? If you have no problem with you bringing family, it's great. Love family. But our concern is the future. What is this future profit making? That is at least my biggest concern. And like I say, listening to what Crystal said, I think that's it too. Also, my property, I have two entrances. You can come in through 59, my actual address, but you can come in through Kennedy Drive as well into my property. And I'm concerned too, I have livestock, and I'm concerned people are going to try to cut through and use my property as a cut through if they get lost. Because it's buried way back there, you have to go back. You have no idea all that's back there. So people could definitely get confused and lost, and I just don't want people running over my geese or my chickens. And I don't want my geese, because geese are geese. Kids get out of the car, kids as tall as a goose. We all know what a goose is going to do. So I just don't feel comfortable with the prospect of future renters. Like, family's great, like, it's just the future.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wright. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? You can come up.
Evening, gentlemen.
Hey.
My name's Danny Flanagan. I live at 165 Kennedy Drive, Commerce, Georgia. A little bit more to this than just kids over there in the woods. To get to this guy's property, y'all may have to resolve this. To get to his property, he's got to cross my son's property. The easement road that comes by my house is a 9-foot farm road. The easement road.
165 Kennedy Drive.
We live in. Me and my mother-in-law own property on both sides of the easement road. And I would not be scared to bet what me and her don't pay more property taxes over there than anybody. Because we can't get it zoned agriculture. We pay a high property tax. The road is 25 foot from my daughter's front door. The road is 65 foot from my mother-in-law's garage door. For Kennedy Drive, I think, we live on Kennedy Drive, an easement road. I think Kennedy Drive may stop where the asphalt stops. And it goes in a curve, a little bit of that curve. Well, my mother-in-law's driveway just takes off in that little bit of curve. They've already been a car shoots up our driveway, her driveway, and stops at the garage where there's a 10-foot high retaining wall. They get up here, they make a quick turn to go right back in the dirt road. These people come here, they ain't gonna know that Kennedy Drive is not a gravel, asphalt road. They're not gonna know that Kennedy Drive going to hit this man's property. It's a gravel road, 9 foot wide, and he says the traffic's not coming, but you can't control how people drive. They're gonna be flying by us, and and I got 9 grandkids. Talking about the kids, I got 9 grandkids, little bitty kids. And just over the easement road in front of our 2 properties is a hill that you cannot see what's on top of that hill, and you cannot see what's over the top of this hill unless you go over it or you come up it. And people are not respectful this day and time. And I'm afraid my little grandkids, they run back and forth to grandma's house, to grandpa's house, back and forth. It's going to be dangerous. And Crystal talking about her lake. I've been around long enough to know that car traffic on any dirt road is going to do this number. That pond will do this number. If they more and more traffic gets on that pond, it's going to do this number. And the pond's going to bust. My son, my other neighbors, everybody over yonder is going to be cut off unless they got a bunch of money to fill this hole in and build that pond back. And I do not think we need the traffic in there, because my mother-in-law, she's 80 years old. We left Flower Branch, she left in 07, we left in 012 to get out of the mad race down there. Her husband bought property. Larry built a shop, he reconditioned boats and boat motors. The man was doing fine. He got a stroke, passed away. Last words he told his wife: do not never let nobody take your home from you. Because this woman was born up yonder in High Tire, up on the river in 41. You know what kind of life she's living. I worked hard all my life to have what little peace of mind we got up there, and we don't want to throw it away. And I'm afraid when the traffic comes, all the people comes, our way of life is going to be gone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Flanagan. Anyone else who would like to speak? Come on.
I'm Don Baldwin. I live at 185 Kennedy Drive, and I know you heard my wife speak about the road, about the condition of the road. It's really no more than a tractor trail. We are the largest property owners that they have to go across with this easement, and if we're going to improve the road, we're not interested in giving up more of our property already. One of my biggest concerns too is accidents, car accidents. Am I going to have to pay more insurance to cover that? Am I going to have to pay more insurance if someone's hurt on our property? So I oppose this. I really don't think it's needed. And the other part that maybe isn't quite clear, maybe it is, to get back to this man's property, you've got to cross about 30 acres, and almost 30 acres is our property. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Baldwin. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Hello, everybody. My name is Elena Zapata. I live at 282 Kennedy Drive. I'm his direct neighbor. I don't know if anybody wants to see this. I brought the plats of the properties. Everyone was talking about going through the properties. He has to go through my property to get to his property, and our houses are maybe 30 feet. His house may be 30 feet from my property line, tops. My biggest concern is our children, our property. I have 8 kids that live in our house. I have livestock. I have dogs. We talked about a lot of stuff last time about safety and the roads, because at this point my husband is the only one fixing the roads every time someone goes on it. I mean, only 2 of us technically live back there, so You know, we do our fair share. We borrow my father-in-law's tractor. He's not talking about putting up a fence, as you heard him say. He is putting up the fence over his entire 5 acres, which will landlock us in. That is his intent. He's left me a voicemail. I know that's what's going on. The posts have already gone up. If he plans to do that, I know it's going to be a civil matter, I guess, but for how long will I be locked out of my property because he puts up his fence until we can have it taken care of? The first meeting he did talk about how he wanted to do this and he loved the pond and he loved the livestock and the farm animals. That's why he bought the property. I don't want random people wanting to come try to pet my cow or my chickens or my goats or my pigs, because we have it all. And our property, he can see all of my stuff through his window, just like I can see the side of his house just from standing on it. Our well house, which he wasn't sure if the offset was ours or his, is inches from the property line. And if y'all want to look, it cuts in front of our house, the property line, and then goes down. So if he puts the fence up, we'll be able to see it out of our living room window. If he wants to put up a fence, that's fine. Don't landlock us in at this point. It's 5 acres. Everyone's going to want to know the mooing and the dogs and over the fence. Who's to say they're not going to come over the fence? Who's to say my kids are safe? My kids, we live in the country. I'm talking no shoes, panties, running around the yard. They already have concern with that and have asked us to move like our trampoline so they can't see our children through the window. So, I can't think if there's really anything else that maybe, we're really worried about the road being landlocked in at this point. You've heard everybody else's concerns. My children going to come home, and how are we going to get to our house at this point? I guess that's really it.
Did you want to give us, we may already have that, but
I
yeah.
have 2, and it shows, here you go. It shows that, I think it's about 40 feet of our property, of the road he has to go through to then get to his property and then back to our property. So if he puts up a fence at his property line, he still has to go through our property to get to his property, not to mention everybody else's little bit of property on the easement.
Okay.
So bottom line is I don't want to be landlocked in so he can put up a day camp. Originally he wants to do Airbnb, and he knew that wasn't going to fly. So he talked around with the zoning director about how they can still go about putting up houses. And they have emails, and we have emails and conversations about how things were said. So this, I think, is his way of going around doing the Airbnb. And then eventually, like he said at the previous meeting, is that for funds, he was going to, if people wanted to stay for the weekend, he would rent it out. That's his way about getting this income, having these random strangers. And somehow they get out of their fence and they see my dog. My dogs are not aggressive, but who's to say they don't try to come and hurt my animals? If my animal does something because they throw a rock at it, I don't know what is that going to? Am I going to have to get some type of insurance for my property in case if someone gets injured? Like, who's covered? What happens there? And the road is not fixed. It's a one-way. So if they've got someone coming into the park to camp and I'm leaving, I'm not backing up 500 feet to the front so that they can get in. They're going to have to back out. And who's to say they know how to back out on a dirt road where it's a cliff because it goes down to the pond?
Thank you, Ms. Biswater. Did you want those back when we're done, or do
yeah,
you?
when you guys are done, I'll
Okay, we'll set them right here on the edge. Okay. Would anybody else like to speak?
My name is Tracy Grisham. I live at 1106 Bennett Road, Homer, Georgia. My mom is Willie Vanderford that lives on 400 Family Lane. And I'm just concerned about the safety of the pond, of course. At the last meeting, he said that he was going to build probably a 10-foot fence, but yet he's facing toward the pond, and he said last time, well, I'll move it where it's not facing it. He hasn't done that. But they're real tiny. I don't see how a family's going to stay in there. By the time you put a kitchen and a bathroom, there's nothing left. I mean, the one that he has now is really tiny. But I'm confused because one time he says it's a day camp, and the next time he said they can stay overnight. One time he said that there could be a group of boys or whatever. Well, if you have a camp, you have counselors, and you have hour by hour or minute by minute activities for them to do. He said he was going to build a sandbox. Well, sandboxes only go to probably age 3 or 4. So who's going to drop off their kid and it be a 5-acre? I just think his house and all of these 3 things are going to be on 5 acres. And they're going to explore 5 acres. That's, I don't think he has enough land for that. I really don't. It's just going to be crowded, and just the safety issue, they're going to pass a pond on the way in. Oh, look, we can come down here and swim, or we can fish, and then when they get up there, oh, look, there's another one. And so even if they put a 10-foot fence, who's to say when y'all were all young, did you not jump a fence that's 10 foot? Of course you did. I mean, if you live out in the country, even girls do that. So that's not going to contain them. So I just don't really realize, I guess, what he's going for, because he contradicts himself. It's a day camp, and then they can stay overnight. It's family, but then they can rent it out. So I'm just confused about what all actually is going on. And it just doesn't sound like a good plan to me, because you have a day camp, you have a leader that stays in there. If it's a day camp, why do you need a house? If you're going to be hiking, you're going to be doing activities, that leader will take them on hikes, and they're with him 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. Well, it's not big enough for you to really do. You can play a game maybe, but I just don't see as a parent that I would drop my kid off there and let them stay just for the day. It's just not enough room for them to explore without having a lake or swimming pool or something for an activity for them to do. And he hasn't mentioned counselors. He says his son will take care of them. Well, you can't leave kids unattended, even 16-year-olds. When you go to camp, you have a regiment. You might have fun, but you still have somebody watching over you and all that. And if it's just family, why do you need 3 units? Why can't you just have the one? So that's my...
All right. Thank you, Ms. Grissom. Anyone else like to speak?
I'm Steve Ledford. I live at 6212 Old Springs Road. I own the property adjoining the Spanford, going down that side. I want to join Danny, and I joined the lady in the very back there. This place is in the boondocks. You got that big creek down there, and then all the woods. I just don't think this would be a good place for what Mr. Albino wants to do down there in that neighborhood. I agree with the ones that spoke so far, about the people coming in. They don't come in on my property or down there, down through my property or anything. But still, this is just, it's just unreal.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ledford. Would anyone else like to speak? Anyone else? Don't want to leave anybody out. Okay, at this time we're going to ask the applicant to come forward again. This is a chance for you to offer just a summary statement. You can give rebuttal, and then afterwards commissioners may ask you questions.
Yes. Again, with hearing all the concern, I just feel that it's just been flipped. It's just been turned into, it is going to be a small little camp. I'm calling it a camp. It's going to be just for the family. We're not going to have counselors. We're not going to have people coming over to spend the day there like they do in a regular camp. This is just a private little spot. They're concerned about the pond, the fences going up. I'm going to put some privacy pines or some spruce that are going to go up so that nobody can see either way. I'm taking all the concern. I understand about the road and the one way, and I am open to, if we can do something. I don't want to take land from anybody, but if it can be taken care of, I will personally pay for it. I want to make sure that any concerns, I'm not going to have kids or anybody go to that area that we don't know about, and they're not going to be wandering. They're not just going to escape in the middle of the night. I really doubt that, but you never know. And I would, I'm listening. And the concerns are there, and I'm welcome to, correct or work with whatever it takes. The
Okay.
reason there is 3 little cabins there was for that one reason, was to try to generate some kind of income so that I can help with whatever, I can and throw it out there, but, that's basically all of it. I gotta bring it down to 2, I can bring it down to 2, it's no big deal.
Okay.
It's just a private.
Well, at this time, we'll give commissioners a chance to ask questions. We can start with Commissioner Wester. Do you have any? Okay, Mr. Swales.
Are you in the process of building a fence that would
I
that would cover the easement road that?
Well, no, there is no. But what happened was, at the first meeting, there was a concern about the kids wandering everybody's property. So the first thing I said, well, I'm going to put a fence up. It's just a wire fence, 4 feet high, with the poles like what you see all over the place. What happened was that in the beginning, when I bought the land, when I bought the house, John, the gentleman that sold me the house, explained to me that the road that leads to my neighbors is there. It was just never done because he didn't have no funds to put it in there. So I wasn't too concerned at that point. So what I said, when I met Liana there, my neighbor, we also walked through that particular road, but I knew that it was going to be an expense. So I told her, I said, no, just don't worry about it for now. You can just come up, because if you look at the easement, all the easements stop at my property. From my property up is considered a driveway. So her little spot at the corner there, from I think it's 7 through 9 is an easement. I can't change that. You know what I mean? I'm not going to block her from going to her house. That's not what I want to do. I just explained to her, how long do you need to put the road in so that you can get around the back, because I do want to close it. Because now I feel that by her coming up through my property and having all her gas, because there's quite a few cars that come up there, because she does have a business up there. And I don't say anything about it, but they do come up and cut across the front of my house, and they park there, and I never said anything. So when they brought up the issues with the concern about everybody, going into people's property, well, I'm just going to fence myself in. But then I called her up. I did send her a text. I said, well, I have my survey. I know where my points are. I'm about to put, how long do you need to put your road? She said she doesn't have the money right now, and if I do close her in, I'm not going to close her in. I'll give her whatever time she needs to get in to her, but she does have to put the road in. And then she said, well, if you're going to put a gate to block me from going to my house, I'm going to put a gate at my 2 points at the top. And I said, but that's not what I want to do. I don't want to do that. If you put a gate there and I put a gate there, neither of us are going to get that. Doesn't make no sense. So I try to, I can't talk to her because she just keeps going on and arguing. So I'm not here to argue with anybody.
As long as you're not intending to block anybody,
I don't
I
wanna
think
block-
that
I don't-
does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Now, it was brought up that the easement coming into your property has to go over a fish pond. Is that going to be safe to get fire trucks, EMS
Yes.
trucks over?
Correct. If I invest on the road, which either way I'm going to invest on it, because the road is a little bumpy and it does get pretty bad when it rains. I have it in my budget. It's just that because everything went through the roof for the last year, it sort of got away from me. So I have still enough to grade it, crown it, and then run some 57 over it from the top all the way to the back. But now the prices got a little bit.
Well, I mean, my question is that dam sturdy enough to run a fully loaded fire truck over that to get to the properties behind it? That's where I have a concern.
The first dam, if I have to, get an engineer to sort of look at it, I'll probably do that, depending on the cost. But it's the first one. The second one is up high. It's like a levee. So the second one I'm not too thinking about. There is a pipe underneath. But if that is a concern, then that's something that I would like to look at.
It would be. I mean, it would be a very serious concern.
Oh no, most definitely. I'm not doing anything. I'm telling you, the reason I decided to everybody that, because this is rural. I'm from Massachusetts. This is all new to me, and I respect everybody. I mean, I'm new, and I don't want to step on nobody's feet. I'm new to this. So, but from the beginning, I wanted to make sure that I went by the book. That everything that I was doing, I reported to Scott. That's what I did. And this is why we're here. Everybody that came up there, well, why don't you even build this rule? You don't need a permit. No. I'm from Massachusetts. Over there, you need a permit other than paint and wallpaper. So that's what I did. And this is all
Okay.
being done by the board. And with all respect.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioners? You talked about income. Are you planning to, when people come in, are you renting these cabins?
Well, they're not gonna be rented like that. The idea of an Airbnb was brought up between me and her, and then she approached me and she said, you know what, this Airbnb, and at that moment, I squashed it. I said, no, we're not gonna do an Airbnb.
Okay, earlier you said you had 3 cabins you plan to, I thought you said rent to generate income. So just want to.
Minimal.
So you will rent?
Well, that's the proposal, that in order for
Okay.
me to generate enough funds, I would probably wanna rent them, I don't know, Thursday through Sunday, or if I have to minimize it, I can do that. If I'm not allowed to do it, then we're not allowed to do it. I'll put the cabins up and we'll use it for ourselves.
And with those units, Scott, are those units, would they have to be inspected? Will they have electricity, water, power?
Well, if they're gonna be used for the purpose of a day camp, it'll have to be there'll have to be an engineered report on those buildings. They'll have to be built to a certified set of plans. They'll have to meet all building codes for what would be considered a multi-family unit. So it wouldn't, if he does build something like what he stated, it's not gonna be something thrown up.
It couldn't be like a primitive cabin where they just come and sit and there's no pot. So whatever he builds will have to have power, water, etc.
Water,
Septic.
all that. Correct.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you, Mr. Albino. All right, the next item is the commercial industrial zoning update. On April 6th, the Board of Commissioners approved a moratorium on large industrial uses that extended through June the 30th of this year, and we later extended that again until July 15th, which is a few days from now. The purpose of this moratorium was to give the county an opportunity to revise and update the zoning regulations of Franklin County, and since the moratorium was enacted, our county planning staff, the Board of Commissioners, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the public have had a chance to weigh in and give input on the relevant portions of these to help revise this part of the zoning regulations, and mainly to account for updated practices and changes in zoning laws, because these were passed not quite 20 years ago. The Board of Commissioners are going to consider a final draft of the ordinance for the proposed revision for approval tonight. And the public hearing this afternoon is just another opportunity for the public to weigh in on this proposed ordinance. So this time we're going to ask our planning director to come and kind of go over that and present that to us, and then we'll give everyone an opportunity to comment.
Yes, as you stated, this has been reviewed and mulled over by all pertinent parties. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on it. There was no comment from the public, but we have essentially what we're looking to do is the commercial zoning districts that we currently have would go away and then be replaced with these one of these 5 new created zoning districts. Each one has certain requirements as far as setbacks, buffers, that sort of thing. We have created a chart of what would be permitted in each district, what would be not permitted, what would be a conditional use permit in each district. There's been multiple revisions, additions, subtractions, so forth and so on, as it's made its way through all parties. The product that y'all have right now, that the most current product is the one that's been recommended as the final version. So that's I've had one citizen so far request a copy of it, and that's about all the input I've heard from the public, other than well, I haven't heard from the public. Everything's been from county staff, planning staff, planning commission, so forth, so on.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Delozier. We're going to give everybody an opportunity to, if you want to give input on this, and then depending on whether the commissioners want to ask questions, we'll bring Mr. Delozier back. So at this time, is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this? Raise your hand and we'll let you come up. Anyone? All right. Is there anyone who would like to speak against this?
Question.
Yes.
When you say vote in favor of, what are we voting for?
No, you're not voting. Speak in favor of it. Yes, sir. Yes. In favor or against this ordinance, which is revised, that he talked about, which is revising part of our zoning ordinance that has to do with commercial industrial districts. Yes. Yes.
Okay, Sheila Wright, 24555 Highway 59 in Commerce.
Yeah.
So I have a question about the changes. I know when I was here at the last meeting, I heard something about affecting 59 and it runs into 51. Why are y'all looking at me like you don't know?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're
The
referring.
next exit, the highway.
This ordinance is countywide, and it governs how commercial, industrial, or how land is zoned for commerce and industry. And so if a new business or commerce industry in particular wanted to come into the county, they would have to go through a process where land was rezoned. This changes or adds additional zoning districts and just further fine tunes the process they have to go through to be able to be approved and operate in Franklin County.
I guess what I'm asking, sorry, I'm not asking very well. The changes there at the highway, the 51, are we trying to bring in, McDonald's and that kind of thing? So what are the changes?
I'm not sure
More
we're.
intensive agriculture to something? Is that what we're trying to do?
I'm still not sure where exactly you're talking about. You can.
The planning commission was asking about the update to the zoning map as well.
Okay.
I believe that's probably what you're referring to.
Okay.
But there will have to be an updated zoning map to coincide with the zoning district.
Okay, yeah.
So that's probably what you're referring to. I'm not sure what the question is.
And so where do we get the information to find out what we're...
So the zoning map, that's something that is going to take a long time to update. I'd say the first rough draft version of it probably won't be available for as early as 6 months. That's a pretty aggressive goal. That's what we're shooting for. And once before that map is done, we'll have public hearings. We'll have the same process that we're having now on that zoning map.
Is that pretty much what we're doing though, trying to change from intensive ag to other items?
No, this ordinance doesn't change the zoning on any property. It does create new districts, but if somebody came in, all property that's currently zoned industrial or anything else would now have to fall into one of these new categories. Currently, there are no parcels of land that meet these new zoning requirements because they're brand new, or zoning districts, I'm sorry, because they're brand new, right? All we have, if we have property that's zoned industrial, it's just zoned industrial right now. There were no, so under this new classification scheme, if it's passed, depending on the type of industry, you would have to have land zoned to fit the zoning district that was required by that industrial operation.
So I'm like expanding.
Yeah, it's taking what we have now and making new, more defined and concrete zoning districts to fit different types. Rather than have one district that everything fits into, it'll be broken apart into light, moderate, heavy types of industry. And we have in the ordinance our detailed list of what industry classifies or would fit in what zoning district. So it's a total change in how we zone land for industrial uses.
Okay, where
Yes.
would I get?
You can contact me. I can give you a copy.
Okay, all right, great. Thank
All
you,
right,
guys.
thank you, Ms. Wright. Anyone else want to speak? Yes, sir. You can come up.
It's really not anything new. I'm just going to follow up on a question. As you know, Alan Martin and I are the troublemakers in the county. But I believe on June 16th, he sent you a letter.
Name and address?
Oh, my name's Steve Fortson.
I'm sorry.
I'm at 244 Skyline in Wayne, Livonia, and I'm not a bit shy as yourself. On June 16th, Alan Martin sent a letter to you, and he asked me tonight, since we had to divide ourselves to get there.
Okay. This is only about the zoning. If this is about some other issue, we'll have public comment in the meeting to follow, and you can speak about that then.
So is it going to be tonight?
Yes, this is in the meeting to follow. This is just about the new zoning ordinance.
You've seen the letter and
Yeah, you can speak on that at the next meeting. Okay. Anyone else? Again, this is just this public hearing is for these particular items. So, does anyone have any other comments you'd like to make? Come up to the podium, please. Hey.
Elizabeth Busby, 91 Harbor Road, Constable. I guess I'm just wondering. So we're extending the moratorium till July 15th.
We've already done that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And so then it's going to take 6 months before we have So will we be protected in that time?
Yeah, we're passing the ordinance tonight. We do plan to totally revise the rest of the zoning ordinances. This is just a small part that deals with commercial industrial, but that whole process is going to take probably 6 to 9 months. And as part of that, as he was talking about, we're going to look at the entire zoning map. And that takes time. That requires work on GIS. But if this is passed, anyone who comes forward with industry are going to have to meet the requirements of this ordinance. But it will involve probably reclassification of land depending on what they want to use it for. But it would have to meet the requirements of this new ordinance.
Okay. Where does that leave us with like rendering plants?
Rendering plants are addressed in that. I know a lot of people, we had the recent issue with Pilgrims, they say, well, please ban that particular type of industry. And that won't hold up in court. You cannot legally ban, but what you can do, what the courts say is you can restrict what industries can operate where. And so our approach in this revision is to greatly expand that ordinance, and that's why we expanded the zoning districts and specify what type of industry can be in what type of district, where that district can be, and what restrictions are on that district. And for instance, you use the example of a rendering plant. That would, under this ordinance, have to be confined to a heavy industrial zone parcel of land, and there are a lot of restrictions on where that can be, how close it can be to residences and things like that. So, and I don't have the whole thing in front of, to be able to read all that off, but that's our approach. So we haven't banned anything. We just looked at restricting where a certain type of industry could be.
And require conditional use.
And require conditional, especially, our approach, I think, has been, if we're looking at heavy industry, we need to look carefully at that and have the most restrictions on how that comes into the county. And so we tried to say heavy industry, conditional use permit, so that the Board of Commissioners has the greatest level of control over whether or not that comes into the county.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else who would like to speak? Okay. Mr. Delozier, if you'll come up, we'll ask if the commissioners have questions over this ordinance. There's been a lot of back and forth between various groups as we've tried to fine tune this. So do you have questions? Mr. Swells? Mr. Foster? Mr. Franklin? Your question? Okay. All right. That'll do it. That's the end of this hearing. So we're going to adjourn this hearing. We're going to wait about 5 minutes, which will be at 6:45, and then we'll start the regular meeting then. That gives everybody time to go to the bathroom. But right now it is 6:40. We will start the regular board meeting at 6:45 promptly. So we stand adjourned. All right. At this time, we're going to call to order the regular board meeting of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners on Monday, July 12th, and it is about 6:48. We note for the record we have a quorum consisting of all 5 commissioners present. We want to welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. At this time, we're going to have an invocation followed by the pledge. Commissioner Franklin is going to give the invocation, and then afterwards we want to ask you to remain standing and join us in the pledge. So please stand.
Let us pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we praise you for another day, God. And God, I pray that you'll touch this board. God, that decisions that we make, God, that they'll be pleasing to you, God. God, and we look to you for great and mighty things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Sorry. Everybody look to the wrong place. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This time we need to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to approve tonight's regular board meeting agenda as presented?
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Foster has made a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Swells has seconded the motion. All in favor of the motion to approve tonight's agenda as presented, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. The motion will carry 4-0, and the agenda is approved as presented. At this time, we're going to ask our county manager, Mr. Turner, to give a personnel report, if he has one.
Nothing to report, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turner. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the following prior meeting minutes. A public hearing on June the 7th, 2021. A regular board meeting on June the 7th, 2021. special called meeting on June the 18th, 2021, a budget hearing on June the 18th, 2021, a Board of Appeals hearing on June the 29th, and this actually was left off the list on the agenda, but it's part of this past month's prior meetings. A work session for June the 29th, 2021. All commissioners have been provided with a copy of the draft minutes for these prior meetings. Do any of you know of any corrections that need to be made? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the prior meeting minutes as presented?
I make a motion that we approve the prior minutes as presented to us.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Franklin has made a motion to approve the prior meeting minutes as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Swales has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the prior meeting minutes as presented, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. The motion will carry 4-0, and the prior meeting minutes are approved as presented. We had quite a few meetings. All right, at this time we're going to open the meeting for public comment. During this portion of the meeting, any member of the public may speak to the board on any topic they have of concern. Because the board is not able to prepare for questions and topics ahead of time, this is primarily a comment section. If you have questions the board can't answer tonight or that time doesn't permit, we're going to ask you to write those down along with your contact information and give them to the clerk, and someone will try to contact you in the next few days and answer your concerns. When you come up to the podium, as in the hearing, please begin by giving your name and address to the clerk who's sitting over here. In order to facilitate this meeting and allow everyone the opportunity to speak, each person must limit their comments to 5 minutes or less. Each person may only speak once, and you may not yield unused time to another person. Our clerk, Ms. Finger, has a timer that you hopefully will be able to see from the podium so that you can gauge how much time you have remaining and adjust your remarks as needed. Members of the public are required to follow the same rules of decorum as each of the commissioners, and this means that you are respectful, that you use civil discourse, and that you avoid any personal attacks. All comments should be addressed to the chair, and members of the public may not interrupt or make additional comments while someone else is speaking. We have a large crowd, so we just ask that you keep side conversations to a minimum, because it's important for everyone to have a chance to speak, but it's also important for everyone to be able to be heard. And that may be a little difficult. There's a lot of noise. You do not have to sign up for public comment. Sometimes people do, and so we have one person who signed up. We'll allow her to go first. Maggie West. Is she? Okay. If you'll come up to the podium. And remember, as you come up, of course, we know who she is, but give your name and address, please.
My name is Maggie West. I live at 6041 Stonebridge Road, Carnesville, Georgia, 30521.
Okay, thank you.
I'm the branch manager of the Franklin County Libraries. Nice to see you all again. First, I just want to express my gratitude for your continued support of both the Livonia Carnegie and the Royston Public Library. Both branches are fully open and back to our normal hours of operation. We still offer curbside services for those who may not feel comfortable coming inside or who may not be able to. On June 1st, we began our summer reading program. The theme is Tales and Tales. Our children's programs are being held virtually, but our young adult programs are doing very well. We're seeing a large attendance of middle and high school students at our events. We're doing programs on endangered animals, making portraits of your pets to remember them, and we're trying to teach them while they're having fun. In September, we hope to resume our weekly in-person story times at both branches. I invite you all to come see what we have going on in the fall. We're very excited for all the stuff we have planned. Lastly, I would like to ask the board to consider assigning 2 more chairs to the Franklin County Library Board on behalf of the Board of Commissioners. As you know, the Board of Education has pulled their funding, therefore they do not have a chair on our board anymore. So we would like to transfer Peggy Berryman, who represents the Board of Education, to the Commissioners. And then to add a 4th seat, and Tracy Galorn, who was our previous children's specialist, would like to apply to be on the board as well. We have 3 seats currently. We're asking for a 4th and to transfer 1 over.
Okay, I'm not certain. We would have to, I think, speak to our attorney about what that might entail if we have the power to do that. But we can certainly check on that and then get back with you.
And that's all I have. So I'll give you an update on the library and what we have going on. And I thank you all very much.
All right, we appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. West. Okay, anyone have a comment? If you'll raise your hand and come on up to the podium. And just remember, please give your name and address before you begin.
Michael Melia, 270 Bold Spring Church Road, Carnesville, Georgia, 30521. Just a dry county. Let's keep it that way.
Thank you, Mr. Melia. Anyone want to speak? You can come up, Mr. Schwartz.
My name's Steve Fortson. I live at 244 Skyline Way in Livonia, Georgia. Simple question. Alan couldn't be here tonight, but he asked me to ask you if you had thought about an answer to his letter of June 16th discussing restructuring the IBA.
He has sent me a couple of letters, and I've responded to, I think, to both of them, but I'm not certain. But in the general gist of what I've told him about the IBA remains the same. It takes a lot of community involvement. You've got to have participation and agreement by the cities and the county to be able to change that.
I think you're going to see that we're going to get support from the citizenry. And again, that's the only thing I needed, Jason. So in other words, you have not officially responded to the letter of the 6th.
I'm not certain. I've emailed him a couple of times when he sent me. So I don't know. I can look at it and see and let you know later. But I feel like I have, but I don't remember for sure.
Alan's generally pretty much on the money.
Yeah.
And so when he asked, I said, I'll be happy to ask Jason because it's a matter, obviously, of extremely great importance.
Yeah.
Should be to everybody in this room.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Schwartzen. Anyone else like to speak? Anyone? I don't want to leave anybody out. Okay. Hearing no more, we're going to move on to the next item. 7A, conditional use permit. This is an application by Dustin Hunn of 5747 Gumlog Road, Martin, Georgia. He's filed an application for a conditional use permit to build 2 poultry houses on a tract of land totaling approximately 77.38 acres. This is located at 5747 Gumlog Road and further identified as tax parcel 061-001B. At this time, we're going to have our planning director, Scott Delosier, come forward and summarize this application for the board.
I think Mr. Hunn might have been confused and left already, but as he stated in the public hearing, he's got 2 breeder houses currently on his farm. And he's seeking to build 2 additional breeder houses. According to the site plan that he submitted, all setbacks can be made or can be met or exceeded. There is no anticipated adverse effects to any adjoining property owners or residential dwellings near this farm. The planning commission heard it, they reviewed it, and they recommended approving this application.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Delosier. Commissioners, do you have questions for him at this time? We'll start with Commissioner Wester, Commissioner Swales, Commissioner Foster.
I'm assuming that CWT has approved him building 2 more. Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Franklin. Okay, all right. Any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Delosier. This time, is there a motion to act on the conditional use permit application by Dustin Hunn to build 2 poultry houses at 5767 Gumlog Road?
I'll make the motion to approve the application to approve for Mr. Hunn.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Foster has made a motion that we approve the conditional use permit application by Dustin Hunn to build 2 poultry houses at 5767 Gumlog Road. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Franklin has seconded the motion. Is there any further discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the conditional use permit by Dustin Hunn to build 2 poultry houses at 5747 Gumlog Road, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. The motion will carry 4-0, and the conditional use permit by Dustin Hunn to build 2 poultry houses at 5747 Gumlog Road is approved. The next item for discussion is an application for conditional use permit. Tina Brock of 3406 New Kings Road, Bridge Road, Nicholson, Georgia, has filed an application for a conditional use permit to build and operate a women's shelter refuge center on an approximately 10-acre tract of land located at 638 Reno Road and further identified as tax parcel 040-095G. So at this time, Mr. Delosier, if you'll come forward.
Yes, so as she stated in her public hearing comments, Ms. Brock is looking to provide Franklin County with a place for like a women's crisis shelter. She does have experience in this field. The application that she submitted, site plan and the initial floor plan, the preliminary floor plan for the building, all seems that it can meet all requirements for Franklin County. We don't really have in our current zoning regulations, we don't have anything really called out for a women's shelter, refuge centers, anything like that. Which is why it is a conditional use permit. The Planning Commission heard it, they reviewed it, and they did not see any issues with it, and they recommended approving the application as presented.
And no conditions?
No conditions attached, correct.
Okay. All right, Commissioners, do you have questions? Commissioner Wester? Commissioner Swales? Mr. Foster? Okay. Any more questions? If not, Mr. Delosier, thank you. At this time, is there a motion to act on the conditional use permit by Tina Brock to build and operate a women's shelter at 638 Reno Road?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Mrs. Brock's application for conditional use permit.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Swales has made a motion to approve the conditional use permit application to build and operate a women's shelter at 638 Reno Road. Is there a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wester seconded the motion. Is there any further discussion? Any? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the conditional use permit by Tina Brock to build and operate a women's shelter at 638 Reno Road, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. The motion will carry 4-0, and the conditional use permit by Tina Brock to build and operate a women's shelter at 638 Reno Road is approved. All right, the next item on the agenda is an application for a conditional use permit. Edwin Albino of 157 Kennedy Drive, Commerce, Georgia, has filed an application for a conditional use permit to develop a 3-unit day camp on approximately 5.09 acres of land located at 157 Kennedy Drive, further identified as tax parcel 013-015B. Mr. Delosier.
So the applicant, Mr. Albino, as stated, he has applied for a conditional use permit for a day camp. Again, it's something that is not very clearly specified in our zoning regulations, which makes it a conditional use permit. The Planning Commission heard the application. They felt like the plan and the presentation was not clear as to exactly what was wanting to be done. They felt there was some safety concerns as well and some issues with the site, and they ultimately recommended denying this application.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have questions? Start with Commissioner Wester, Mr. Swales, Mr. Foster, Mr. Franklin. Okay. Hearing none, at this time, is there a motion to act on the conditional use permit application by Edwin Albino to develop a 3-unit day camp at 157 Kennedy Drive?
Make a motion that we deny this conditional use application.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Swales has made a motion to deny the conditional use permit application by Edwin Albino to develop a 3-unit day camp at 157 Kennedy Drive. Is there a second to his motion?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Franklin has seconded the motion. Is there any further discussion? Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion to deny the conditional use permit application by Edwin Albino to develop a 3-unit day camp, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. The motion will carry 4-0, and the conditional use permit by Edwin Albino to develop a 3-unit day camp at 157 Kennedy Drive is denied. Okay, the next item is an application by Andrew Plyler of 950 Glenwood Drive, Gainesville, Georgia, to rezone from ag intensive to residential single family, a 13.23 acre tract of land located at 10622 Highway 59, further identified as tax parcel 044-071C, 044-071D, and 044-071B. So, Mr. Delosier.
So this application originally came before the Planning Commission back in May. It went before the Board of Commissioners in June. Both the Planning Commission originally recommended tabling the application, and the Board of Commissioners adhered to that recommendation of tabling it. At the last Planning Commission meeting, Mr. Prowler presented again, and the Planning Commission went through it. They got all their questions answered. The Planning Commission recommended approving the rezoning from ag intensive to residential single family, and approving the preliminary plat for Mr. Plyler's proposed 11 lot subdivision, with the condition that the applicant commits to building traditional stick-built homes inside of this proposed development.
Okay, so we're going to vote on both approving the rezone and approving the preliminary plat. Does that need to be two separate motions?
It would make the most sense to do it.
Okay. All right.
We'll have to come back before to get his final plat.
But that would be handled by staff, or would it come back to us? Okay. All right. So we would approve the preliminary plat.
What you're doing now.
Okay, and that's an 11 lot subdivision.
Correct.
Okay. And the condition is only traditional stick-built homes, no manufactured housing or mobile homes. Okay. Commissioners, do you have questions? Mr. Wester? Commissioner Swales? Mr. Foster?
Well, I do have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is the approval of the preliminary plat the part where we would include the condition of the stick-built homes, or is it the first approval?
It'd be the rezoning.
The rezoning.
We could put it on both, couldn't we? Let's put it on. If we're going to consider it, let's put it on both. Okay, Commissioner Foster.
I don't have anything.
Mr. Franklin.
Somebody moved a double wide right there at it. Now that double wide has nothing to do with those 11 lots.
Okay.
That lot was sold before he bought.
So does he own that?
That's correct.
He
doesn't.
So he's got the mobile home that he bought originally. And
yeah,
then,
he's got a new one.
Yeah, he's got a new one. Now there's a adjoining tract that has nothing to do with him, completely separate owner, completely separate entity that has purchased the mobile home, and they have got a mobile home permit. And it's adjoining that tract, but to be clear, it has absolutely nothing to do with the development.
Okay.
The reason I wanted to throw that out there because I've got some calls about it. And this guy has nothing to do with that one. It just got moved in last week.
Correct.
So,
Okay.
Good point. Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Franklin. Any other questions? Okay, at this time, is there a motion to act? We'll do the rezone first and then the preliminary plat. So, but if we're going to vote on it, we need to attach the condition to both motions. So first, is there a motion to act on the rezone application by Andrew Plyler to rezone a 13.23 acre tract of land at 10622 Highway 59 from ag intensive to residential single family?
I'll make a motion to rezone from ag intensive to residential single family with the stipulation that this will only be stick-built traditional homes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wester's made a motion to approve the rezone application with the condition that only traditional stick-built homes are allowed. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Foster has seconded the motion. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion to approve the rezone application by Andrew Plyler to rezone a 13.23 acre tract of land at 10622 Highway 59 from ag intensive to residential single family with the condition that only traditional stick-built homes are built on the lots or on the property, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion will carry 4-0. And that rezone application by Mr. Plyler for 10622 Highway 59 to rezone from ag intensive to residential single family is approved. Okay, the second motion will be whether or not to approve the preliminary plat for an 11 lot subdivision with conditions. So is there a motion that we approve Mr. Plyler's preliminary plat, subdivision plat for an 11-lot subdivision with the condition that he only has traditional stick-built homes.
I'll make the motion to approve the plat on the condition that he only builds stick-built homes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Foster's made the motion that we approve the preliminary subdivision plat for Mr. Plyler for an 11-lot subdivision with a condition that only traditional stick-built homes are permitted. Is there a second to his motion?
I second.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Franklin seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion to approve the preliminary subdivision plat for Mr. Plyler for an 11-lot subdivision at 10622 Highway 59, signify with the condition that only traditional stick-built homes are allowed, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. The motion will carry 4-0 and the preliminary subdivision plat is approved. All right, the next item is the commercial industrial zoning update. So I'll just review that again. On April 6th, the Board of Commissioners approved a moratorium on large industrial uses that extended through June the 30th, 2021. This was later extended again through July 15th, 2021. The purpose of this moratorium is to give the county an opportunity to revise and update the zoning regulations of Franklin County. Since the moratorium was enacted, the county planning staff has worked with the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Board of Commissioners, and the public to develop an ordinance that revises the relevant portions of the zoning regulations to account for updated practices and changes in zoning laws. This ordinance will be Article 20, Additional Commercial and Industrial Zoning Districts. So at this time, Mr. Delosier, you'll summarize that.
So as stated in the public hearing, this update will eliminate the current commercial and industrial zoning districts and replace them with the new recommended districts. It gives us a chance to more clearly define what is permitted and where it's permitted. As the zoning ordinance is written out, it's very broad, it's very basic, and does not give very clear guidance as to what industry is permitted where. So this will give us an opportunity to have a better control and better, an all-around better system for approving commercial and industrial industries as they want to come into the county.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have questions for Mr. Delosier? Any? Okay. Tonight we had a public hearing, and we've also had a hearing with Planning and Zoning. So we had the two required hearings, first reading tonight, second reading, and so we'll move forward with the vote. At this time, is there a motion to adopt the ordinance amending the zoning regulations of Franklin County to add Article 20, additional commercial and industrial zoning districts?
Make a motion that we approve the update to the commercial industrial zoning with what is specified for each new zoning district.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Swales has made a motion that we approve this ordinance that amends the zoning regulations to add Article 20, additional commercial and industrial zoning districts. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Foster seconded the motion. Is there any further discussion?
I want to commend all the hard work that the Planning and Zoning Department put into this, as well as the countless hours that you put into this. And I don't envy you over the next 6 to 12 months. It's a lot of work coming up with that map.
I second that. This has been a lot of work, and we tried to do it right and to make sure we get everything right. So there's been a lot of back and forth. Any more discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the ordinance that amends the zoning regulations of Franklin County to add Article 20, additional commercial and industrial zoning districts, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. The motion will carry 4-0, and the ordinance that amends the zoning regulations to add Article 20, additional commercial and industrial zoning districts is approved. Thank you. Next item for discussion is board appointments. We have one vacancy on the Planning and Zoning Commission that was created by the recently expired term of Commission member Gary Hall. We've advertised this vacancy for the required period of time, and we've received several qualified applications. It's often the case that no one's interested, but for this particular position, we had several qualified applicants, and we like to see that because we like to see people who are interested in it. The commissioners and the staff have had the opportunity to review the applications that were received. So at this time, is there a motion to appoint an individual to the Planning and Zoning Commission? This would be to succeed Gary Hall, term beginning July 1st, 2021. So we're actually a little retro, and extending through June the 30th, 2025. That's a 4-year term. So is there a motion?
Chairman, I'd like to nominate Mr. Bob Ragsdale to fill that seat.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Foster has made a motion to appoint, I'm sorry.
5-year term.
I'm sorry. Okay, 5-year term. So will you amend that to the term would end June the 30th, 2026?
Okay, I'll amend that for the term to end June
June 30th, 2026.
For 5 years.
Okay. So Commissioner Foster has made a motion to appoint Robert Ragsdale to the Planning and Zoning Commission to succeed Gary Hall. Term would begin July 1st, so it would be effective immediately, and it would end June the 30th, 2026. Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Wester has seconded the motion. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion to appoint Robert Ragsdale to the Planning and Zoning Commission to succeed Gary Hall, term beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June the 30th, 2026, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion will carry 4-0, and Robert Ragsdale is appointed to Planning and Zoning. All right. The next item on the agenda is a road issue. Mr. Larry Ray Brown. We're going to ask Mr. Brown to come up and address the board on this issue. As a reminder, citizens that place items on the agenda, you have 5 minutes, and you have to limit your comments to the chosen topic. As an agenda item, you can ask questions. There can be question and answer, but that counts toward the overall 5-minute limit. So if you'll come up, Mr. Brown, and we'll
Larry Brown,
see if we can help.
211 Mountain View Drive, Livonia, Georgia. Been here, I think this is the 4th time, about the condition of my road. June the 8th, we had a torrential storm. The road went away. On June the 10th, I think that was on a Saturday or something. June 10th, I called and asked to get the road repaired. Talked to Mr. Turner. And at that time, when I talked to Mr. Turner, he said that he would have someone come out and take a look at the road and see what needed to be done. And at the same time I was talking to Mr. Turner, when you and I discussed an alternate to asphalt, because asphalt being so expensive,
yeah.
I brought up the thing, let's do some tar and gravel. Use my road as an experimental road. And of course I got a negative response there. And when I was talking to Mr. Turner on the 10th, I asked him, I said, well, in one of the meetings I went to, we talked about somebody was going to do research on an alternative to asphalt and tar and gravel. And with that being said, from the conversation that I got from Mr. Turner was that he was responsible for that, but there's been nothing gone on. Now this has been 3 months, and what's going to be the alternative? We don't want to asphalt because we can't afford it, and we don't want to use tar and gravel because that's primitive, I guess. I don't understand that, but every time it rains, my road goes away. Did a little research. February, March, April, and May. This county has spent a total of $396,000 on buying gravel. Every time it rains, $396,000 goes down the ditch. We have got to do something, folks, in this county. I've been here, you've told me that it's been 5 years since a road in Franklin County from going from dirt to paved has happened. You guys proud of that? Come on, you got to do something. We've got to quit living in the dunes, the back ages. Pave some roads. I don't care if it's mine or Billy Bob's or Joe's. Pave a road in Franklin County.
Can I ask you? You said your road washed out. Like what portion was it? The portion in front of you,
right in front of my house?
Okay.
My house sits on a hill. I've got about 100-foot driveway, and it's very steep. It comes down and it washes away. We talked about this, about safety with the school buses. I've got 3 school buses that come up and down that road twice a day, okay? And anyway, Nick, your road manager, superintendent, super nice guy. He came out and him and I talked about the road. They dug up a bunch of gravel that was in front of my house. They came in and they put a load of crushed run down and they packed it with their trucks and stuff. And we've had quite a bit of rain, but we've not had the torrential downpour.
So that's helped though, at least in the
has
short
helped
run.
at this
Okay.
point in time. Now, they also came and blew out some pipes under the driveways. And he said that was part of the problem, that the water was coming over and helping wash down. Well, that don't have anything coming off my hill. You know, I understand washing down the street, but coming off of my hill into the road, that has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
But once again, folks, please, let's do something in this county that's for the road department. Let's give these guys a break so they're not out here riding around on a bulldozer every day grading roads that wash out when it rains. Let's see. I've got a couple of questions I'd like for you to research for me and get me some answers. And the first one being, of course, when are we going to pave a road in Franklin County? What is an alternative to the asphalt? Once again, we go back to that. Tar and gravel's obviously not it. What is the cost to this county for an operator to run one of these road scrapes? What does it cost for the county to keep that road scrape up? How much fuel does that road scrape cost us every day that we operate it? How much money in our top tax dollars do you guys or do the county commissioners set aside for road improvements? How much of that money actually goes to road improvements? Not maintenance, road improvements. And
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
I didn't get them all in.
We'll and you can leave additional questions with the clerk if you've got those written down so that
I
we
do.
can refer to them.
I do.
Okay. All right. Please give them to her. Thank you, Mr. Rowe. All right. The next item is a road and airport authority issue of Mr. Strickland. So if you'll come on up.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Sir.
I got mine.
Appreciate it. David Strickland, 5550 Vickery Street, Livonia, Georgia. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for your time. I was just, we were in here October at the public hearing is when I first came, when the airport authority started doing the taxi lane, which you would have thought would have been on the side of the hangars, but it wound up on the other side of the runway, which they have to actually cross the runway to get to the taxi lane, which is actually now basically the length of the runway. If you look on what I've given you, off of Stars Bridge Road, it's Rice Creek Road. Everybody knows Rice Creek. It's all paved from Rice Creek Church down to Stars Bridge, but from Stars Bridge over to the airport, it's dirt. And then probably 4/5 of that is pretty good dirt road, but it's the last fifth because I thought my address was 5 Rice Creek Road, but evidently with the county, they've got it as 0 Rice Creek is my address with my taxes. I meant to make you a copy of this, but I didn't. I forgot. But like I said, with everything that the airport authority has done, they have actually made 80% of my land landlocked because they took out a crossing over a creek that I had. I told them I didn't mind them redoing mine as long as they gave me enough place to cross over, but when they came over and encroached on me, there's no place to cross the creek. They didn't do it. And all this, like I say, happened, and then when everything was going on with the board with Harris, and then the transmission with Chairman Addison. And so then I met with Chairman Addison and Vice Chairman Ward on July the 6th of 2019. And they said, well, we can do this right here. And he checked with Harris about, which I'm fine with. But the main thing is nothing's been done for that period of time. And what I'm trying to do is get, because we're in the process of getting to go before the airport authority, But what we'd like is just that extra 616 feet of Rice Creek Road just to get to the end of it. And I met with Commissioner Forrester. We walked down there, and like I said, we drove to the point and then we walked the rest of the way. But I just wanted to be on notice because, like I said, with the other time, it was just public comment and there really wasn't anything. But, 2 years and 9 months is a little bit of a stretch when you've got land that you're paying taxes on that if I had cattle on it, it would be on the runway because they haven't even put a fence back up.
So the fence hadn't been repaired either.
Right. There's 1,700 feet of fence that basically they just took out, along with 2 gates, along with a corral, and didn't say anything. They just came in and did it. But I would appreciate anything that the board could do.
Are you going to meet back with the airport authority? You said you were going before the actual authority.
I'm going to find out when their meeting so I can get on theirs because they had told me, because obviously I had the minutes of their July 8th, 2019 meeting that basically said that once the phase 2 was phase 1's completed, phase 2 is completed, then we would they will talk about the Strickland situation and get everything going. But phase 2 has been completed a while and nothing's been done. And we're just trying to do because, the airport, the regional airport is a great thing since Sonny Perdue extended it to 5,000 feet for our county and our area. It's a great thing. But what we're trying to do is, I don't want to be a doormat. I just want to basically have access to my property and be able to use it.
Do you have any access, like off Starsbridge Road, there's another lane that it shows?
There's a little strip right down through there, Chairman Maxson, but you cannot get to the other big part of it because there's a huge creek over there.
Yeah.
And it's all wooded there's about a half an acre that, matter of fact, we just had bush hog. And it's hard to get to where you can get the bush hog in there because, well, if you look on that plat, on the, almost at the end, right here.
Yeah.
I just asked, what does that look like coming off of the airport? Because right here is where our gate was. Okay? And they took it all the way down to here and took it out. And the road that come across, they basically even took out that little bow in the road. And what we're trying to do is get from here to here. And
Show me on that note.
Right here. Mm-hmm. And we've had the land basically since September 7th. Actually, it was ours.
I'll get Mr. Turner to also talk with the airport authority, and then we can get back to you.
But I appreciate your time.
One question, I guess Derek might know this. Is that part of the road? Is that a county road, like on the county list?
It probably is not on the county list.
I think we verified that it
wasn't
right.
All right.
Okay.
Because I've looked on my thing that we had as far as commissioners but I looked and it's not.
We'll get him to look into that, and so that we can give you some support with the airport authority about getting the fence fixed.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Strickland. The next item on the agenda is the Environmental Health Department fee schedule update. This was presented to the board at our work session at the end of June, so I asked Mr. Turner to review this with us. We'd just be up for approving it tonight if the board doesn't have any objections.
I believe that they have a representative.
Someone here from the health department or the Board of Health? Okay, I'm sorry. Come on up and introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Kinsey, and I work with the Environmental Health Office. And at the last regular meeting that the Board of Health for Franklin County held on May the 13th, they approved the update to the environmental health fee schedule. And this update was the most current update since 2013. So, 2008, so it's over 13 years ago. And we have provided the update to you all in previous attachment for review. And we wanted to take this opportunity to respectfully request your consideration and approval also of this fee schedule to allow us to adopt that and implement that on August 1st.
So it would go into effect August 1st. Yes. Commissioners, do you have questions for Ms. Kinsey? Okay. Do you have anything else you want to? Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Kinsey. All right. This time, is there a motion to adopt the updated fee schedule as requested by the Franklin County Board of Health?
I make the motion to adopt the new fee schedule for the Franklin County Board of Health.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Foster's made a motion to adopt the updated fee schedule. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wells has seconded the motion. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the motion to adopt the updated fee schedule as requested by the Franklin County Board of Health, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion will carry 4-0, and the updated fee schedule is adopted. Thank you. All right, representatives from Livonia Village Project have met with the board a couple of times in the past meetings to ask to tell us about their project and ask for support. And so, turn it to Mr. Turner. Do we have it? Are they here tonight or?
Yes.
Okay.
And you're actually here for tonight, so they'll be just coming up. They won't go through the whole presentation like we went through with the work session, but this is just a little bit more of them addressing any questions that you may have concerning that presentation or the project in general.
Okay.
So again, that was about 177 units that they were looking to place in Livonia. So they're just going to address any questions that you may have regarding that presentation that they had at the work session.
Okay. All right. If you guys will come up.
Good evening. My name is Andy Ewing, 137 Commerce Ave, LaGrange, Georgia. And this is Andy Camp.
Hello again.
Your address?
818 Burkdale, Carrollton, Georgia.
Yeah, I missed that last time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time again. We really appreciate the chance to talk at the work session. Andy can kind of go through more detail than I know about. But, you know, we're excited to hopefully work a project up here. And really tonight was just, I know we hit you with a lot of information, you know, questions, comments, any concerns we can address. That was really our goal tonight.
Are you asking us to approve anything tonight, or is this still just a chance to?
Well, I would say this: we've given you a lot of information in a short time, and so
Okay.
we don't obviously, if you're
Okay.
willing to consider break, but we don't want to push because we understand there's a lot of information to be digested. We're still working through some other meetings as well, but
All right.
we just want to be patient and make sure we cover the bases.
Well, let's just open the floor, commissioners. If you guys have questions for them, based on what you've heard so far.
What other people who have to sign off on this have signed off on it that you?
Well, we've worked with the city. Chris Ford is back. We had a great conversation on Friday. We're going to get before his board. And then it appears, I don't want to speak out of turn, Derek may be able to mention more, but the last discussion we had with Tanya, she and Andrea spoke, and it looks like the JDA may be the entity to do the logistics of this. We had a big conference call with all the attorneys, including Andrea, Walt with JDA, and Bobby as well. Exactly, Bob's in the loop. And the thinking is we will probably present to the JDA, I think it's the 26th of July. We'll present, I believe they're in person this time, so we'll present to them as well.
What's the kind of, can you boil it down? What as far as financial incentives, what exactly are you asking from the county?
Yeah, I'll let Andy explain the details. At the end of the day, market rents, and this is from a third-party analysis company. You know, Livonia, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, new construction, you know, we're estimating $1,100-$1,200. New construction does not support that. And so what we've tried to do is figure out an inventive way of sorts to partner with the community to where we can make the numbers work for the project, get the bankers, the investors, but also deliver the project. And Andy, I think, can give a little more background on what we're looking for incentive-wise.
Yes, and these would be based on a commercial project. That's another thing that I came up through some of the conversations with the legal team, as well as just an experience where it had been done before. This is not something that's new. It's just something that we haven't done here yet. But where we find these to be very helpful is to kind of clear that log jam and open up some things that are hopefully going to come behind it. They should come behind it. They follow rooftops usually, and I think those are some conversations that have been had even in some of the meetings we've been a party to. Like Andy mentioned, there's a gap, and we try to fill that gap with things that the project brings to the table. So that way it's not hitting anyone who's already participating, who's already a part of the community that already has their investment here. So the new project would come in, would add these new housing opportunities, would bring in and capture folks graduating, all the things that we've talked about before, creates those new rooftops, gets some notice from retailers, restaurants, other things that are looking, that may have been looking rather, but also you could use to market the community as an opportunity to them. And now that you've got that extra consumer demand right around there. So when we look at it, we boil it down to ad valorem. It's something that's kind of nice and neat. The functionality of an authority can work it very simply. We found the correct one. That was a question. Everybody's like, yeah, this makes sense. Okay, how do we do it? We've navigated that, thank goodness. And it turns into a reduction of, or foregoing the collection of all of that in an effort to secure the project. It's one of those things where without the project, that's never on the digest. With the project, 25% of it will be on the digest during that period of time. Then they call it a bond, but it's not the type of bonds that we think of when you issue one to pave a road or to, go build a new building or something like that. These have no recourse. It's just a vehicle for which there's a kind of a leasing mechanism that an authority utilizes, and that's the quote-unquote bond. But they call it a phantom bond or a bond for title. And that's how it works. That's just a quick overview of the mechanics of it. And by the deferment or the not collecting those, then those stay inside the project, fill the gap that Andy Yoon was just talking about, make the project viable, and gets it built. Without that assistance, it doesn't work.
And if I could add this, there's no federal assistance here. What we found in a lot of areas that you may end up with a LIHTC or maybe a Section 8 type project or a HUD, which has a place in every community. What we're finding is the income restrictions are so low that you're missing the true middle market. And as we've talked to companies, and we've been working with a lot of communities trying to listen and understand, everybody's talking about this, I use, I guess, the term war for talent. The talent's graduating from your high schools. And so what we're really trying, and a lot of them already have apprenticeships through your Futures program. And if there's a way we can offer something where those children can stay in the community, then everything starts to go. It's the talent your company needs. Your community's already supported the education of the students. And then all of a sudden that family gets together at church on Sunday. It just kind of creates a full circle. And what we're finding is doing it this way, there's a benefit to everyone involved, but we're able to do true market rate. And so we can capture the, herring jobs. I think, what are they trying to hire? 800 right now. You've got local, we have letters of support from some of your local companies that I think we may have shared, but I think there are another 400 or 500 job openings they're trying to fill. With Chris, he said he's got openings at the school that he's not even getting applications because there's just nowhere to put people. And so what we're trying to do is fill that gap. And to Andy's point, as we talk to builders, I was encouraged to see some rezonings, but the builders say if you can come in and prove that market's there, we'll follow you. Because at the end of the day, we answer to the banks, which after COVID have only gotten a little bit harder to deal with, and the investors. And so when we're able to prove that the community's there, the support's there, we can hit these rents, then all of a sudden the builder's going to show up and say, wow, I've got, in this case, I think it's 178 units. I've got those people that in 12 to 18 months are going to want to buy a house, because when you're graduating from high school, you're not in a position yet to buy a home. You need to be established first. And then the other side is if you're relocating, we talked to a company that said, look, I'll hire somebody on Friday, gosh, I need them down here the next week to start work. Well, if they're relocating from, say, Michigan, again, they're not in a position to build or buy a house day one. So I think it may have been Tanya that turned it kind of pipeline housing. We give that start, and then they move on, build a house, raise the family, stay in the community.
Okay, commissioners, do you have questions?
Are we voting on anything tonight?
Well, I think probably we need to take some more time to review what we have.
Delighted to come back to the next work session. We can keep you posted on other meetings.
Do you guys have questions?
I do.
I guess I have more of a concern than a question, because I know you're talking about this tax abatement, basically, is what y'all are asking for. And I guess my concern is number one, what kind of precedents are we going to set for anybody else coming in who's wanting to develop a subdivision and everything. We already have at least 2 subdivisions in the process right now of homes being built. What kind of precedence are we going to set by giving a tax abatement to one, and then everybody else is going to expect it? And you even said that you've got builders saying that if you can come in here and do that, then they're going to come in behind it. Well, then they're going to expect a tax abatement. Well, in the meantime, we're doing all this, and when we are providing this housing, but you got to stop and look at what the school board's going to face. They're going to face an influx of kids coming into the school. Where's that money coming from? That's going to cover the school board also. This isn't just an effect directly on us as a county. We need to look at the whole picture. And that's where my concern comes in at.
I'd love to address that question, sir. Those are 2 very good ones, and I appreciate you asking that. The first one, precedence. Each one of these projects stands on its own merit. So that was a question that came up multiple times in our conversations with the legal team, just to make sure everyone understood that. This is not a commitment to any other future project. It's just this project alone. They're done as a single serving, and they're done with an agreement that serves that project based on those goals that it helps achieve, and that's it. So I think maybe talking with Bubba and a few other folks, they can talk you through some specific legal thing. I'm not an attorney. I slept at a Holiday Inn, but I'm not an attorney. So I'll let them answer from a legal perspective. But having a lot of experience with it, in my opinion, and based on all the feedback they've given us and the dozens of other projects I've worked on, there has never been an expectation that this would be hanging around for anything else. This one is unique because it's a commercial project, where the other projects are done in a fee simple conveyance sold to a home buyer, and those are big distinctions in the way that they can be treated by the Development Authority's law. And then the other thing that you mentioned was the potential burden to the school system. And I'm glad you brought that up, because while this project can't do anything specifically to create an environment where someone couldn't rent it, because that would be against the Fair Housing Act. What we do is we create a project that is tailored for the folks that Andy Ewing was mentioning, the young workforce, the folks that are coming to fill jobs. This region is doing extremely well with job creation. We want to help y'all capture all of that by getting that talent here and allowing the industries as well to continue to expand, including the aforementioned school system being able to get good talented teachers into it. So the benefit to them is great. Having said that, these aren't families with young children, especially school-age children. They're not set up to be that way. The design of the apartments, or the townhouses for rent, but we'll call them apartments for the sake of the discussion, are set up where they have a very simple amenity area that would be geared towards someone who would be working and what they would want to have to come home to, a walking trail, maybe a small fitness center or something, so they don't have to leave the property to go do the workout and can fit it in with their schedule. But we've heard is that there's not a place for someone to come move to or move into as they're leaving their home, graduating, and taking that job. That's the housing solution that we're trying to see. And we can't do that in a format where there's some sort of layered federal type of program on top of it, because then it restricts the people that we're trying to put in that, because they make too much money, just to be candid. I don't believe from our math we projected there may be as many as 10 school-age.
It's a little less than that.
Yeah, probably a little less than that. And we've come up with a number that the school system would receive. That number makes them whole. We didn't want to go. We would not want to go below that. It should not be a burden. The project is a benefit from day one, from a fiscal standpoint. That's where we try to be with these. If we could do it without the help, we would. But we want to do it. We want to do it with y'all's help. So thank you for asking those.
And I'll add real quick on that. Two different things. So this being the townhomes, round numbers, we try to get 200 units in the communities. This one just ended up being 178 based on size. When I talk about the builders, they're coming in to build single family for sale. And what they're seeing is like, there's some builders up here that may come up, build 2, 3, 4, 5 houses or make some duplexes, things like that. And that's great, but to be able to drop in a professionally owned and managed, on-site management townhome that's quiet, because, when you're doing shift work, if you're working a night shift, you come in the next, you're on a different schedule, you don't want a whole lot of noise out there. Having on-site is going to be, heavily monitored. The other side is the units are designed, again, because we're trying to figure out how to make the numbers work. We've gotten very efficient. These are 900 square foot, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Well, that works if you're a high school student graduating or relocating, but it's comfortable, but it's not a place you're going to want to live for 3 or 4 years, because you're built efficiently small, truly for, the teachers, the nurses, the folks relocating or staying. We're going to encourage everybody after a certain time frame to, frankly, please leave, go buy a house, build a house, go to a bigger place. But the builders that follow, what they need to see is there's a base here. They know when we fill those units that in 12 to 18 months, they're going to be people that are established. Their first job may pay them, 30, but within a year or two, they're going to be at 40 and 50. You start hitting that number, then all of a sudden you start to creep up to where maybe you can, qualify for a mortgage. Maybe construction costs ease up a little bit. But they know that there's a base of that group that's fully employed, committed to the community, that's going to want to buy a house. And that's kind of what we're after. And I'll add that communities, Dawsonville's done something similar, Statesboro, Doraville's done this. We can get you a list, which I'm sure helps, of a lot of communities that have done this to really kickstart what they're trying to do. Does that cover some of it? And I know we still have a lot of work we need to do to help get everybody up to speed, so we understand that.
It does, but I have researched it with three different builders that are building the affordable homes in our county right now, and they can't build them fast enough. And so it just concerns me that we're, given a tax abatement, especially for so long, it's just not benefit long term for this county. Maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but it just concerns me that it's not going to be that what it needs to be for the county.
Well, I'm concerned too. A 20-year tax abatement. What does rental property look like after 20 years? That's a concern too.
Well, this one's professionally owned, as we've talked about. There's on-site management as someone that's making that long-term investment, and they're frankly buying it, thinking about that kind of a hold period. So that number was something that was backed into in a way that the school system is in a good place from what we think they'll need. And also there's positive impact fiscally over that period of time. 20 is not really it's not the term as much as it was the gross total of that. The gap we were trying to fill in hitting that spot where everyone gets something out of it. It's a good project when everybody gets something. And the first day that the project's vertical, it's paying positively into the taxation system, into city, county, school taxes. That's what happens. That's why the 25% for 20 was picked. It was just it was the neatest package that got the equity and the lenders to the spot where they're like, okay, now this project makes sense based on the rents that we can get and the cost of it. And then we also think that it makes sense for the community because it contributes day one, provides a lot of other opportunities that aren't measured inside that framework of that bond for title, like the consumption taxes based for SPLOST, your other local option sales taxes and things that are created by having those new households in the community that wouldn't previously have been here. And we also, it's something that comes in about a 2-year period. So boom, we knock out 177 of these in a little less than 2 years, like Jim Chapman was saying when he was here with us. By the way, he couldn't be here this week. He's with his parents on vacation. And he's another person who lives in Georgia, born and raised. So these are things that we're trying to do for our community because we see jobs being created, things coming down the road. The need for it we know is there. This takes it down a little quicker. The demand is coming in on that single-family market for sale property is fantastic. I think that's awesome. They're just going to be taken down at a little less of that absorption rate's a little slower. So, you know, we're going to get a little more in quicker. And then over time, those folks will flow through that project and into those homes.
Okay.
Kind of continue that demand cycle.
Excuse me, I may add, I understand where you're coming from. With Section 8, the developer, the incentives on the front, in a sense, they almost build that for a fee. So when they finish, they move on down the road. USDA, we've seen a lot of older USDA products. You know, some of those are smaller, 50 unit, 80 unit, 100 unit. What happens is, with the product we're doing, we're bringing in the bigger equity players, let's call it, the guys that are, or the companies that are building in Metro Atlanta, you know, your Rome's of the world, and those, their incentives are different. And that's why I enjoy the pilot bond setup, is the benefit happens over 20 years. It's not at the front end. So everyone's incentivized. The investment being made of $25 million, that's not something anyone's going to walk from. Whereas with a USDA, again, a lot of your incentives on the front end. So then it almost becomes just, you know, managing the property for a fee instead of building the equity and owning it. And then the last piece I'll say on that is, having close to 200 units, you hit that mark where you have on-site management. When you have on-site management, it's professional, and then you have a professional owner. You know, be it the investors, you know, their pension funds, their equity funds, they run their numbers based off 40 years. And so it's not something that falls apart because someone couldn't keep up with it. It kind of sets a new level that you'll see in a lot of places. You know, Metro Atlanta, there are a lot of places that are 30, 40 years old that are still in good condition, in demand. That's because they're large enough to be owned by professional, large groups that, you know, they're banking a 40-year, 50, 60-year horizon on those. Not, let's build it, let's get a big fee on the front end and take off.
All right. Any more?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Good.
That's okay. For the sake of everyone here who's been very patient, can we keep the answers sharp?
Sure. Sure.
Thank you.
Actually,
not that your answers
haven't.
haven't.
Are getting recognized, we want their minute quickly.
I want you to answer fully, but just, you know.
Yes.
So,
Speak into the mic too as well.
Okay.
with regard, you mentioned trying to accomplish this now through the Joint Development Authority. Mm-hmm. Will this property be in the name of the GDA or the IBA? Will you all be leasing it from an entity?
Yes.
Okay. And so outside of the tax, advantages you're looking from the county level, what tax advantages will you receive just from doing it through that way?
Only that advantage.
Just that allows you to accomplish that goal.
Yeah, that's solely a vehicle in order to deliver that assistance. That's it.
Okay.
There would be no other thing attached to it that the JDA would be relevant to.
Now, with this, if it is accomplished that y'all can achieve that, you won't be paying much in the way of property taxes, correct?
It'll be 25% of whatever the liability would be, which is, I think, a little bit less than $100,000 a year. So 25%.
Over
400,000 would be the liability, so it would be 100,000 would be what's paid. Yes.
Now, we do have an IBA that operates a little bit differently. How does it affect what taxation you pay on leases?
It would be a bond for title. So whatever that leasehold is just the vehicle through which it goes. So it's you don't have a leasehold interest in it like you would with some sort of depreciating asset. I think you're thinking of, if I'm remembering the details correctly. I'm trying to answer it quickly, but that's a very complicated question. The title is held. It's completely subordinate to any other entity. And through that is this vehicle to have the payment in lieu of, or that lease payment, which equates to what the tax liability would be based on the agreed upon rates. In this case, the 25% of the 100% liability. And then that 25% is taken and distributed to those entities that collect. That's the lease. The lease is a means to an end. It's a legal construct through which Georgia delivers this type of assistance. So it would be the same as if it was done for a manufacturing facility. Same thing. Just one's a commercial project, one would be industrial. That's all.
Okay. And then I know y'all do have some other sites. Kyle, I believe you mentioned Athens.
Athens.
And I don't know that they're identical, but what other operation or have you all, was there one in Lawrenceville or Gwinnett County?
You're speaking of Jim's project in Athens, Georgia.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Were y'all attached to that?
No, Jim is our builder partner.
He's the contractor that spoke.
Well, yeah, exactly. Jim's the building partner. He has been building his projects in larger markets.
Mhm.
And so as we've been trying to investigate how to address the shortage in what we call the emerging markets, Jim and I talked a good bit. We went to the same high school way back in the day. He's come on board and said, if we can make the numbers work all day long. So his Athens project, these will be townhomes versus cottages. He did cottages in Athens.
Mhm.
And that'll be the difference, but it's still the same workmanship, same quality.
But your firm, what all have you all produced in the state?
We didn't do that project with no to answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
there was no relation with that.
No,
Others in the past 5 years?
Yeah, so we've been part of the Dodo project and part of a group in Habersham. We're working on a hotel over there as well. We did a shopping center in Hinesville, Georgia. We've done, these are using incentives or using assistance in a partnership. And we've done a handful of other projects. The way we operate is because we have a sense of how it works with the incentives, and Andy's got the background. We go in and work together the project and then bring in the partners to build with us.
I've done about 25 industrial and or public-private partnership projects in Georgia in the last 5 to 10 years. And they have a variety of different elements.
But nothing quite like this.
This would be similar to one that we just saw done in Dawson County that we did not participate in. And I think we've been working on a few of these now for a little over a year. We believe there's a need for the housing, and we felt like this was the best way to try to solve it. And that's why we're forging into it a little bit more than we have in the past. But we have seen projects very similar to this done with team members of ours throughout Georgia, most of them in Atlanta.
Your building partner, Jim,
Yes.
the general contractor, his was in Atlanta.
Well,
Athens. One of his.
Athens was his most recent. He has 5 in different stages of zoning development. There's one we're involved with in Rome, Georgia. We're in discussions with 6 other communities. Again, the way this came about is my background is more of the shopping center. We've used these with shopping centers because there's the benefit to getting the grocery store into a market, especially an emerging market. And when Andy Camp explained to me the shortage, and we were talking to a lot of folks on the street, heard from Rope Roberts and others, the light bulb went off and said, hey, why don't we use the same setup we're using for the commercial for townhomes? And that's how this has evolved. So my background, I've been involved in a few multifamily projects, but that's why I brought Jim Chapman to the table, because he's the builder of 30 years with the backing. And as long as we can make the numbers work, he'll work with us in as many of these as we can put together.
And Jim is from where?
He grew up in Atlanta, Georgia.
Where's his firm from?
Atlanta. He started his own
He's out of
firm. His father was an architect for many years, so he grew up in the business. But when he graduated MBA from, I think, UNC, he came back to Atlanta and started a home building business. Was able to survive that for, 25 years. And then he saw the same thing a lot of people have seen, the world shifting to where people are choosing to rent. And so he started building, he did some senior housing a little bit like this, but his foray in Athens really worked well is the cottages for rent. And I watched him do that, and I said, hey, we're trying to do something in the emerging markets. And that's when we said, let's all throw in together and figure this out.
Well, let's plan to have y'all come back at a work session, because we need to talk about this a lot, and we probably hashed it out as far as we can get this evening.
I did have 2 more questions, if that's okay. Your leasing company, who is that? Who's operating that?
So Jim Chapman has an agreement. They just changed their names. I can get that for you for the work session. He mentioned it last time, but they have, gosh, I think they manage 20,000 units throughout the Southeast.
Okay.
And they understand how to make sure everything runs on time.
Okay. All right. So, just so that I understand, for the sake of my understanding, you guys have partnered in different projects, commercial projects together, with tax incentives to do those projects.
Yes.
You've essentially found a way to do the same thing with residential construction. And so you're looking for a tax abatement for 20 years or reduced tax for 20 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So my concern is that for 20 years, our county won't be collecting full tax revenue, which might work in an industry, but y'all aren't actually creating jobs. The jobs you will be creating, a leasing company that's not local will be leasing the project. And then a construction company that's not local will be constructing the project. I'm hoping y'all can see how the optics aren't favorable, in my opinion.
There will be jobs based here with that. That's actually part of the requirement to be able to do this mechanism at all. So that'll be met and that'll be achieved. And then the other thing I would say is that Jim had mentioned this last time, but he's going to hire as many people as practical that are available. If they're here, he wants to hire them.
I think I can answer your question better. This, when you look at an industrial project that's bringing 1,000 jobs to your community, they may have gotten some incentives, some job incentives, those things. What we're finding is when hire moves in, they're trying to hire 800 people right now. Your local companies are trying to hire 400, and then SKC down the way is just up there from 3,500 to 6,000. When you go talk to these companies, they can't hire anybody for those jobs because there's nowhere to live. And so where we may not have 200, 300, 400 jobs, we're supporting 300, 400 jobs in your community, in your local business, because we're giving them somewhere where they can live. And then your high school students, when they graduate, instead of staying, they don't stay in their parents' house, they leave. And they may come back, they may not down the road, but gosh, if we give them the opportunity to stay because there's a place they can live that's their own, and we're set up, with 2 bedrooms, they could be a roommate with one of their friends and be able to afford it, because we don't want someone to have to pay half of their income into rent, which is happening in a lot of places. And so where the light switch went off in my head, and I really got excited and involved, was we can now support the local jobs, because without housing, they can't hire anybody. And when we talk to folks, it seems like every community's, their company's trying to hire 500, 600 people. Well, if we can deliver 177 units, that supports a pretty large number of jobs, because then those companies have somewhere for their new employees to work, or to live, I should say.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different way to look at it. It's the way I got involved.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys coming
Thank you
tonight,
very much.
and we will get with to maybe set up for you to come in another work session. So we probably have time to think about other questions by that time.
Absolutely. Thank you
All
for
right.
your time.
All
I
right.
know it's
Thank
a new
you.
way to look at it. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The next item on the agenda is the service recognition for Gerald Boyles. Tonight we've got several special guests that are going to come forward. Gerald Boyles recently retired from service on the Georgia Mountains Regional Commission. He represented Franklin County on the GMRC and its predecessor organization, the Regional Development Center, for 27 years, and he's the longest serving member on that council. He's also a former longtime member of our IBA, and he's had a tremendous impact on economic development in Franklin County over the years, and so we want to take time to honor him. He has served the county for a long time, and he's done a lot of good work. So Mr. Boyles is here tonight. We're going to ask him to come up with also Ms. Heather Feldman, who's the executive director of the GMRC, and she has some of the members of GMRC with her. So we're going to ask her to come up and introduce everyone.
All right. Well, thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me to be here tonight on this special occasion to honor Gerald Boyles. I am Heather Feldman. I'm the executive director of the Georgia Mountains Regional Commission. And with me, right behind me, is George Wangeman. He is our current chairman of the Regional Commission, representing the city of Gainesville. Charles Coffin, as you probably know, is our city manager for the city of Livonia. We have Miss Angela Whitby, who is here, and she is the governor's appointee from Franklin County on our board of directors. Of course, we all know Gerald. And then we also have former council member David Strickland, who served a number of years on the Regional Commission Council as well. So I just want to echo the chairman's sentiments about Gerald Boyles. He has been our longest serving member since 1994, before I joined the Regional Commission on staff. But during that time, as the chairman mentioned, he has been instrumental in moving our organization forward and supporting the mission with his leadership and his guidance. As we have developed policies over the years, he's been extremely instrumental in our revolving loan fund program, bringing us loan applicants that have created jobs and investment back into Region 2 in this region. So with that, I will ask you guys to come forward.
We're going to vote on a resolution honoring Mr. Boyles, and then we have a plaque and a frame certificate that we're going to present him with. So I'm going to ask Commissioner Wester to read that for us.
This is an honor to get to read this and to honor a great man who's done a lot for our county, and we greatly appreciate everything that you've done. A resolution of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners honoring the distinguished service of Gerald Boyles on behalf of Franklin County. Whereas Gerald Boyles is a distinguished citizen of Franklin County, and whereas Mr. Boyles has faithfully represented Franklin County on the Georgia Mountains Regional Commission from its inception in 2009, and prior to that on the Council of the Regional Development Center for a combined total of 27 years of service. And whereas Mr. Boyles currently holds the distinction of being the longest serving member on the Council of the Georgia Mountains Regional Commission. And whereas Mr. Boyles was also a longtime member of the Franklin County Industrial Building Authority as an appointee of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners. And whereas Mr. Boyles has been an invaluable member of the county's leadership and has been instrumental in fostering and promoting economic development throughout Franklin County, and thereby directly improving the lives of its citizens. And whereas it is the desire and intent of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners to recognize and honor Mr. Boyles for his inestimable service to Franklin County. Now therefore be it resolved that the Franklin County Board of Commissioners does hereby recognize and honor the devoted public service of Gerald Boyles. Be it further resolved that the Board of Commissioners hereby authorizes the chairman to sign this resolution and the clerk to certify it and spread it upon the minutes of Franklin County for posterity, and to present a copy of this resolution to Mr. Boyles. Approved and adopted this 12th day of July, 2021.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Swales. Is there a motion at this time to adopt this resolution?
I'll make a motion that we adopt this resolution, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wester has made a motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Foster has seconded the motion. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to adopt the resolution that honors Mr. Boyles, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. The motion will carry 4-0, and the resolution is adopted. At this time, we're going to come down and present you with this plaque and the resolution as well.
Well deserved. Surprise.
Would y'all mind moving this way so we can get the photo yet?
I don't know.
Can you get everybody? Put Gerald in the middle.
That would my
All right, thank you.
We hope to see some together in the future.
We want to say thank you again to Mr. Boyles and also to Ms. Feldman and everybody who came to support him from the GMRC. That means a lot. Thank you.
I'd like to say that I appreciate Gerald. I worked for him for 15 years, and he sold the company, and I stayed with that company for 38 years. And I retired from Weaver Automotive. He'd sold that business, and good fellow to work for.
Anybody else have remarks? Okay.
He's a good employee too, Robert.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the Veterans Memorial Day Service Recognition. As a county, we were very pleased to be able to conduct the first Memorial Day service this past May at the recently completed Veterans Memorial Plaza. So tonight, we just want to take time to recognize the people who made that happen. There were a lot of individuals and organizations who worked together to pull that off. If you didn't have an opportunity to come that day, you missed a beautiful service to honor the soldiers and men and women who gave their lives for our country. So what we're going to do is call each group or individual up, and Mr. Turner is going to present certificates. So as we call your name, and some people may not be here tonight, so we'll move over that. But we want to try to mention everyone's name. Mr. Jerome Hill. Is he here tonight?
He had to leave.
Okay. The American Legion Post 92. Do we have individuals? American Legion. Okay. Boy Scout Troop 42. Okay. DJ Benny B. Miss Corey Esco, she sang the national anthem. Is she here tonight? Okay. The VFW Post 5897. Okay. Nick Johnson, who's the Assistant Public Works Director. Marley Scoggins. Miss Scoggins played the taps, I believe.
She had to work.
Okay. The Franklin County Trustees Program. Anybody? Okay. The Patriot Guard Riders tonight, we have several individuals. Do you want them to come up together or just call individually? Okay. Mr. Doug Smith is the Northeast Region Assistant State Captain. Mr. Steve Wortham, who's a ride captain.
Steve's not here.
Okay. Mr. Rodney Swinson, who's a ride captain.
Move over when I'm not in front of you.
No, you're fine. Mr. Don Flowers, who's a mentor. Mr. Richard Roberts, who's also a mentor. Mr. Robert Dower. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Doer.
Okay. Doer. Mr. James Hyde. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are we going to keep everybody up until we do the rest? We're going to keep everybody up until we do the rest of the individuals. Okay, all right. We also want to mention that Mr. Richard Roberts, he set out all the flowers. I'm sorry, all the flags at the courthouse and the memorial for both Memorial Day and the 4th of July. And he's also led the effort to obtain donations for the blue and gold star markers, which will be eventually placed at the memorial. And so we have a certificate for him. And then First Sergeant Dusty Morgan with the Georgia National Guard. Sergeant Morgan orchestrated and hosted the service, and he helped make it a success along with everyone else, and we very much appreciate what he did. All right, thank you. Oh, where are you going to come down? Come on, guys.
Why don't y'all stand? Skinny up, skinny up.
Let us, they want us to stand. All right.
We need to shift that way or something.
We need to shift so we're center with them. Are we in the center?
1, 2, south.
We want to thank everyone who helped make that Memorial Day service a success. That was a beautiful way to open up that plaza. It's not, of course, the first Memorial Day service we've had at the courthouse, but it was the first with the new plaza. And if we've left anybody out, we didn't do so intentionally. We apologize for that. But thank you to everyone for coming tonight. All right, the next item on the agenda tonight is the county manager's report. So we're going to turn that over to Mr. Turner.
All right, so this is what everybody's been waiting for. Thank you. I'll be brief though. So just a couple things that we want to talk about is that we have an opportunity for a partnership with each state credit union. I know that we do have a partnership with another local credit union. This is just an approach that we had, something that was worked on in the past, but we didn't reach 100% on. But just something that could be another benefit for staff. It's local here in Carnesville, so just right down the road, basically right across from our offices. Just an opportunity for another resource for staff to be able to use and to be able to utilize. It doesn't cost the county anything to do. We just sign a partnership with them that they will be available and allow our staff to be able to join. But I just put up a couple benefits, what you have right in front of you. Again, it doesn't cost the county anything for us to be able to go into this partnership to join, but there are benefits such as auto loans that you get into mortgages, home equity line of credit, a few things like that. But this is just something that we wanted to bring before the board, just so that you're aware of it. If you don't have any objection to, then we will sign into partnership with them, so that this is just another resource for staff. Any questions or concerns?
Was Scott Rowland, gentleman that came to talk to you?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yep. Yep. We had lunch.
I know we had talked in the past with them.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So yes, we actually spoke. That I think he came to see you that day possibly, and so we sat and kind of just talked about this, just again as another resource for staff.
Okay. Great.
Any other questions? Okay.
I'll just talk about this briefly and talk about this in the work session. So this is just the ARP funding, the American Rescue Plan. Again, for what Franklin County is going to get, we're going to get $4.5 million and some change in 2 installments. We've already received the first installment of that. So this is just something that gives us opportunity to look at what we can do to support the county. We'll get the other installment of that about May of next year, May-ish. We get this about May, so it'll be 12 months separating, so we get half of it. These are just a couple of things that it does support. I know we talked about these and some of the issues that people have towards that, things that could be worked on like water and sewer infrastructure, things that we need. Also looking at broadband infrastructure, so it has opportunity for us. I'll probably talk about that a little bit later down the line as we solidify a few things with that, but that's what we're working on right now, is looking at the possibility of expanding our broadband within the county. There you go. Okay. All right. So this just talks about the uses of that. The most important things within this consideration is that funds must be obligated. So in other words, we must be in contract by December of 2024. The funds must actually be completely spent by December of 2026. So we have a little bit of time before we have to use these funds in full. A couple of the main things we talked about in the work session, again, just that we could work on is looking at water and sewer infrastructure as we are in negotiations with, of course, City of Livonia with water allotments within that. But there's going to be some potential sewer expansion that we might be able to look at in the future as well that we're taking a look at right now.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
I know that expanding our gas service out to the northern parts of the county is pretty big. Does that not qualify?
No, unfortunately, as far as infrastructure, this is only going to pertain to water sewer infrastructure for the utilities. Now, you probably heard about the infrastructure bill that's right now going through the works of Congress right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that bill, whenever it's passed, might have opportunity to where we can look at that. That's actually something that I'm working with Representative Clyde's office to take a look at to see if there's any possibility of any of that funding or any other funding that we may be able to get done. Because I did talk to the representative when he was here Friday, but that is a big need for us, is looking at gas as we get to the interstate.
Great.
I have a question also. I guess it's not water and sewer, but as far as like the 911 going digital with the radios and all that, is that something that qualifies for this? That again, a no on that?
No, we actually wouldn't be able to for that one as well. I know there's a lot of wishes that I wish it could. We'll have to see again what the infrastructure bill completely entails. I don't know the totality of that bill. But some things that I've talked to the Congressman's aide just to try to see that I know we have coming down the line that we need funds for. But I wish. So again, this is talking about expanding wastewater treatment plants, installation, rehabbing sewer. So these are just a couple of the items that are within that water and sewer infrastructure that we're able to work on. Again, looking at broadband infrastructure, this is going to be something really important for us because I've heard a lot throughout the county, and even with our offices today, the internet was down for a short period of time. But that's something that's very important that we need to look at. We are looking at maps and looking at the possibility of partnering where it's needed with some of these local partners, such as like a True Vista, a Windstream, and some potential others, as we're looking at expanding their networks and improving the quality of the internet services throughout the county. But again, we don't have to have funds obligated until 2024. So we do have a little bit of time to sort of leverage that and work through that as a whole. It does serve the underserved, so funds that you might hear the term RDOF, I don't remember exactly what the acronym stands for, but that's some funding that a lot of those companies have to receive, that they're able to specifically serve the underserved communities as far as broadband internet is concerned. The big thing that probably everybody already knows that is not really new news is that essentially we have coverage coming down from South Carolina as far as broadband with most of the companies, and then they jump over Franklin County and then pick back up in the following counties all the way down to the middle of Georgia. So that's something that we want to bridge the gap for. We'll look at partnerships within that to see if there's any way that, that one has to be a partnership that works for the county. We aren't just looking to throw money for a couple inches of line, but something that's actually going to have effect as far as improving the services, but also making sure that they're cost-efficient services.
Why are they picking on Franklin County?
I don't know. I don't know what happened in the past that made them skip over us, but we can solve those problems with a lot of this stuff. So I think we have a good opportunity. And the more that they've expanded their services, the more it should breed competition with those various companies. That's just a covered map of what our infrastructure looks like as far as broadband is concerned. So the orange is where there's, the darker orange, I should say, is where there's coverage. So you can see we mostly don't have a lot of coverage. But what we'd be looking to do is to kind of bridge that gap and make sure that we're pushing from both sides of that, from South Carolina and from the southern counties to make that a more complete map for us. We're waiting on, I've talked to a couple of those companies, we're waiting on seeing what some of the funding requests would be, and then also too, what that would mean as far as this map. How does it impact that map? Because again, we don't want to give $2 billion just for them to basically color in a little portion of this. We want to make sure that our money is actually going to good use, and that it's going to improve the quality of service for densely populated areas primarily. Just last thing that I have, just kind of talking about the tax digest with the millage rate. I'm working with the tax commissioner's office currently, and I'll get more information out to you about this, but just kind of working through the numbers and seeing what we can do. And it's a little bit small, but just as we're looking at what the incorporated numbers are. Currently, we're at 10.553 for our unincorporated numbers. Our incorporated number is 11.7 as far as the millage rate is concerned. We do receive from the tax commissioner's offices a rollback millage rate, and that's something that we can talk through in the coming weeks. But this is something that we do want to make the decision on as far as pretty relatively quickly, as far as what we do want to project ourselves doing, whether we're looking at rolling back the millage rate, whether we're looking at staying the same, or whether we're looking at increasing the millage rate. I would kind of forewarn as far as looking at this, I would take some caution as far as just looking at an overall rollback in the millage rate, just because we do want to make sure when we're looking at rollbacks, it coincides a little bit with increase of the digest, but also to an increase of industry potentially that's coming into the county. We don't want to necessarily put ourselves into a box that makes it to where it's a little bit difficult for us to operate or to do certain things. Sometimes keeping the millage rate where it's at gives us a little bit more flexibility. So that will be just something that we need to think about over about next week or maybe a little bit less. Also, too, something that as we're looking at what the school board is potentially looking to do and what the Board of Education is doing, there's something just to watch within that, and I think we should know that, I guess, here. And do you have that?
I heard from Mr. Maxwell late today.
Okay.
They're advertising this week. They're going to have two public hearings, I believe, on August 22nd, with their final hearing on, July 22nd. The final hearing August 10th, and they'll set the millage rate that night. So their proposal will require the three public hearings. And gentlemen, just so you know, so that we can stay on track, it's time for these decisions to be made. Next week, I would say.
Are we advertising the digest next week?
So it's a little bit more dependent upon what our decision is. So I guess technically it will be advertised regardless, but sort of the how is a little bit more of what that means. So if we were going back to the rollback rate, then we're talking about advertising a 5-year history, essentially. But if we are looking at any type of increase within the millage rate, then we are going to, just like the school board would be doing, having those hearings at that time.
If you advertise by next Thursday next week, I think you can set your final millage rate on August the 12th, which would be a couple of days after the school board, but that would be good for us to go ahead and get the state approval. So
When
I suggest you plan on advertising next week.
when do we need to make those decisions as far as when are we going to need to sit down and is that what we need to do tonight as far as so we can decide how to advertise, how much of the digest to advertise?
And I'll take Bobby's opinion too, that I think it probably would be prudent, the sooner the better, for us to take a look at that, just so that we can go ahead and look at what we want to do.
I don't know what the city of Long's doing. I would assume they're advertising pretty soon. With the school board going this week, we need to do it at least next week.
We'll be advertising.
Can we advertise for the maximum number? I mean, the 7 years in the digest, that doesn't affect what we ultimately have to decide that way.
You can over-advertise.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
So we can still over-advertise for this week and then proceed at that point. It is be important that we are kind of staying somewhere within that ballpark of what the BOE is doing. That way they can get everything that they need to take care of for the state a little bit more timely.
So does that sound good to you guys? If we I plan to advertise next week. We can advertise the entire amount and then later decide how
The
far.
only issue with that is if you advertise the entire amount, you're going to have to advertise the whole 3 public hearings because of the minute that you're not running the millage rate back.
Yeah.
So you have to set dates for those hearings.
Well, I don't think we can set. I mean, we're not going to decide what that millage rate we're going to set tonight. So I guess, we could have to, and we could back off of that if we looked at it, just so that we've met we don't have to extend it out further because we didn't advertise enough, which I don't think that would be a problem, but I don't anticipate it being.
Just turn the rollback rates. If you say that anything above that, it requires 3 public hearings.
Yeah.
So if you're advertising next week, you have to advertise those public hearing dates as well.
Are we comfortable with advertising at the rollback rate? That means we pretty much are committing we're not going to go above that, but we could still go below that. I don't know if that's what we would do, but
So in front of you, you do have the rollback rate incorporated within your presentation.
We really haven't had a quality discussion about this yet.
So we have a little bit of time.
let's just advertise, and we can have the 3 public hearings, and that way we've got time we can always back off of the rate, and we don't tie our hands if something comes up. We have to do it. I don't see that we're going to hopefully increase, but that way we've met the legal obligation. We're prepared for all contingencies.
Yeah. And I know it's a little bit difficult as we're getting to sort of the digest, just because of the way the timing comes in with receiving the digest and the process that it goes through. It's not to necessarily put the commissioners in a situation to where you're having to rush. But as we kind of get the information, or the process information, we try to get it kind of shot back out. But we do, of course, want to try to stay as close as we can to the DOE, so that they can reach all their requirements with the state with any submissions.
Well, if we do this, do we have to advertise? I mean, would we advertise just the millage at the current rate, and because that's higher than the rollback, and then we have the option to go lower?
Yes, sir. If you advertise the millage at the current rate, you have to advertise
Well, the 3. Okay.
If you advertise at the rollback rate, public hearings are not required.
Okay.
So you have a little. You have
Say
a
we
little.
advertise at the current rate.
Because I don't think it would be an issue for us to have 3 public hearings, even if we didn't have to in the end. But that way we've got our bases covered. Is that everybody okay with that? So we'll advertise at the current rate and do the 3 public hearings. So we need to pick those dates. Can you get some dates out to us so that we can?
Or with clerk to make sure we get some dates pretty quickly, so that we're able to advertise those.
You have to wait 7 days between advertising and holding hearings. So if you advertise next week, you could use the 2 following Thursdays, which would put your last meeting, I believe, on August the 12th.
Okay.
Which would be ideal.
Okay. And that would be the meeting we would approve it at.
Yes.
A meeting following that.
There's on the 10th, you could ratify that on the 12th.
Okay. Does that sound like a plan? Okay, that doesn't require any vote from us tonight. We just.
No.
Okay. All right.
Like I said, I apologize for how it has to be rushed, but of course with sort of the restriction that we do have within it, it puts us in a position that now.
Yeah, seems like this happens every year. We're down to the wire, but.
It's just a timing issue. That is actually, I believe, everything that I have at this particular moment.
Any other questions? Okay. Do you have any announcements?
Yes. So just a couple quick things is that we are still advertising our Hometown Heroes event November 13th. We'll have more information. So please do check our Facebook for that. We also have an economic development summit that will be coming this fall. so that we'll just be working on education as far as the leadership within the county, just understanding exactly how everything works from an economic development standpoint, followed by a workshop that'll be for the citizens to come shortly thereafter. Like I mentioned a little bit before too, Franklin County hosted Congressman Andy Clyde last Friday. He was able to visit the Atlanta Rod and Manufacturing plant, the Ryerson plant, and the AutoZone distribution center. So he's extremely excited about everything that's going on here within the county, and looking forward to partnering with his offices to try to do a little bit more. Like I said, we're no promises on it, but we're going to look at different types of funding and different opportunities that we might be able to have that could be helpful for the county. Also, too, we didn't get this posted immediately yet, but we'll have something there, is that it is County Marshal Code Enforcement Week, so we will be celebrating that this week. And one last thing that we have is we are still in our search for the oldest living veteran by October 22nd. So we are still searching for the oldest living veteran, whether they be born in the county or just currently residing in the county. So if anybody knows who that person may be, and we are taking all submissions because that person is going to be the marshal for the Hometown Heroes event. So any of those submissions that you do have, please contact the county clerk, and she will be more than happy to get that organized for us. And just one other quick aside, that we talked about in the work session, talking about grocery stores a little bit. It is something that we are always still looking at and have had those discussions with the city. It's a little, I think it's a thing that can't happen over time, but there's some things that we need to reach, some standards we'll need to reach to be able to get to that point. But one thought that I did have is, as we are looking within the county and organizing within the county, the citizens are relatively organized right now. It might be a question in the meantime for them to ask more from their current grocery store. If we feel like they're lagging, there's things that we're being forced to go to other areas that aren't, whatever needs aren't being met, that might be the opportunity that we look at to say, well, how do they get those needs met? How do we press these local vendors into doing more and being better for the county?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turner. Just a reminder, the board's going to meet next week for a work session. I'm sorry, not next week. For a work session on July 27th. So that should be our next meeting, unless we have hearings in between.
Mr. Chairman, I looked at the calendar. You could advertise as late as the 29th and still set your millage on the 12th if you guys want to take another week to consider that. Because you got to wait 14 days from advertising. So I believe if you advertise on Thursday the 29th, it'd still be good for August 12th.
So that would give us time to talk about it at the work session on the 27th. So y'all think that way we can fine tune what exactly we're advertising.
The deadline for the newspaper might be that Monday. I think
Could we advertise that? If we give it to you at the meeting? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And again, we just want to thank everybody that helped organize Memorial Day service and the staff who helped put it together the recognition service tonight. We appreciate it very much. Commissioners, do you have announcements? Any?
I don't know if people listen to these announcements or not, but something that you said did strike a chord with me, and that is that we do have some established grocery stores. I think Mr. Wester brought up a great point. There are certain areas of our county that are underserved that it makes more sense for them maybe to drive in one direction or another. But we do have some good grocery stores. I want to compliment the Dilworth family for just how much they poured into our community. I would say they're one of those grocery stores and just family companies that have done so much for our county. So if you are able, and it is close enough, I recommend them for what it's worth.
All right. Any others?
I guess I'll piggyback off what Ron said. You said, how they can do better. Every time I've asked Deals to order something special, they've done it and it's been there. So if you want something, just go ask one of the managers, hey, can you get this? And every time I've asked, they've done it. So
but the prices don't add up.
It's priced one thing in the store, you get the register, it's a different price.
Well, maybe you can talk to them about that.
All right. Well, let's move on. At this time, is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to leave you out. Sorry, Mr.
One question. I don't have to have the answer tonight.
All right.
But is all of the wells that's on the county water up and running? They can
As
answer.
far as I know right now.
Okay. Is that
We'll talk about it.
all right? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn this time?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Wester's made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Commissioner Foster seconds the motion. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion will carry 4-0, and we stand adjourned.